Hmm. Hello, hello. Is this on? Am I live? I am indeed live. Awesome. It works. All right. Today I want to talk about Mithy. Obviously, Mithy got let go. I'll wait a second for maybe a couple people to join before I go on my rant. Uh, all right. I'll just go ahead and start then. Um, Yeah, today's topic is about Mithy. Mithy is one of the few players that we have that turned into a coach. We don't have many coaches that coach League of Legends that used to be players, and most definitely we don't have many that were extremely successful. Obviously people think of Reaper, people think of Nuke Duck, people will think of Mithy. Um, but then there's also this other sort of brand like Kelsey Moser. You have, well, she's not coaching right now, but Peter Dunn. You have Sharks was never a player. Revan used to be a player, just going down people in North America. Who's the Golden Glue used to be a player. Um, what other teams do we have? Dignitas got rid of their head coach, so I'm not sure who's their coach right now, but he didn't used to be a player. Yeah, so Mithy is of a select few. Obviously, this has grown. In 2015, we didn't have nearly as many people. Mithy was still playing. Nuktuk was still playing. Golden Glue was still playing. Probably still in challengers at that point, or academy at that time. But yeah, there's few pickings for top tier coaches that also competed at a top tier level, and well, Mithy is one of those people. Um, And just to talk a little bit about his game knowledge and who he was and whatnot, we'll go back to 2015, where really even before then. So for people who don't know, Mithy is one of the people who really revolutionized Western League of Legends as a support. He was very very smart about the game. It wasn't just about mechanics. Think of Mata back in season what was it 4 when basically changed how everybody plays Vision, just completely dominated and reformed how people play League of Legends. In the West, that was Mithy. Um, in 2015, Mithy joins Origin. He takes a team. He was a leader of that team. And just so you know, that team had a lot of egos, right? That team was not a team of all rookies. It had Sven at the time, Niels, OG Niels, who was a rookie. But everyone else was a hard, stubborn, like Soaz has been known to punch walls. He's also one of the people who like coaches are absolutely useless. And Mithy was the leader of that team. Everyone will tell you, like, if it wasn't for Mithy, that team would not have reached anywhere near the successes that it did. That Origin team went on to make it to finals, take 2 games off of the undefeated Fnatic, went on to make it to semifinals at Worlds, and it wasn't an easy semifinals to make. Obviously, LGD kind of crashed and burned, but going into that group, everyone thought KT and LGD were the ones that were going to make it out. LGD was actually a favorite to win that Worlds from China. They were the first seed, if I'm not mistaken, from China. So it wasn't like an easy group. You had a Korean team and a North American team, a Korean and a Chinese team, and then obviously you had TSM who went 1-5. Um, but yeah, it was not an easy group to make out of, especially for your first world. You had OG Niels, who was first worlds as well, first split playing professionally, and he was able to lead that team to make it to semifinals. They got 3 but the West was very far behind the East at that point. 2016, he makes it to finals again. They obviously lose because G2 is just better than everyone. In 2016 summer, he would join G2, make it to Worlds, and then he would win three splits in a row. Very few people, by the way, have won three splits in a row in any region. And he would make it to the finals of MSI in 2017. So as a player, he's accomplished a lot. 2018, he joins TSM. We don't talk about that. But as a leader, that's part of the reason G2 picked him up was because he was that amazing shot caller with the have mechanically gifted Sven, or at the time OG Niels, right? Or maybe he had changed to Sven at that time. I don't remember. But Mithy, for all intents and purposes, in game was a leader. And obviously, he went back to Origin 2019, 2018. Yeah, 2018. Was it 2018 or 2019? I'm not remembering. I think it was 29. Yeah, 2018 was on TSM. 2019 he was on Origin. 2020 he was on Fnatic, and he was on that very chaotic Fnatic roster. That was the COVID year, if I'm not mistaken. So he came in. He had Whippo. He had Selfmade, if I'm not mistaken, was that year. They had just gotten rid of Nemesis. I think Nemesis was in 2019. Regardless, there were a lot of egos on that team, and when he came to that team, it wasn't. He didn't have that dominance that he had previously. And Thorne will tell you that whether it was a proper conversation or it was an interview that he did with Mithy, but he was saying, when you joined Fnatic, I assumed that you were going to assert your dominance, right? Because listen, like I'm Mithy. Who are you guys? Like Whippo, you've been playing for what, a couple years? You haven't done nearly as much as I have. I have a much longer tenure. I have much more experience. Um, Same thing with the jungler, like pretty new jungler. He had a lot of say on that team, and he didn't take it because he was like, yeah, as a player, obviously I have all this leadership and I have all these accomplishments and I can assert myself, but as a coach, it's my first year, still learning, and it doesn't seem like he was able to assert himself throughout his time. Obviously, he would then join Cloud9. Um, And he had a lot of success on Cloud9. There are very few players that turn to coaches that win a regional league, let alone make it to finals. But to win is extremely hard. Think of players that have turned to coaches from the West. So you have Reaper, obviously he won, but players in the West that have become coaches. Pupa literally made Worlds Final. Mithy never made it. Yes, but again, they didn't make World Finals because of Whippo. You have to remember it wasn't because of Bubba, right? Bubba was still being subbed out with Soaz, and the only reason he played was Soaz broke his arm. So I do understand that Whippo made it to World's Final, Wayne's World, but it wasn't Whippo's team. The main thing he played was actually he played bottom lane instead of Reckless because there was that whole meta where you had mages bot. Um, Continue with the point and react. Okay, yeah, that sounds fine. SLJ. Um, but yeah, there are very few players who even make it to finals as coaches. Bjergsen became a coach, wasn't able to make it to finals. Nonetheless, like win the league. You have Nuke Duck, who made it to finals the split, but did not win. Mithy won with Cloud9. Was it three times? 2021, 2022, and 2023. And when he was given the head coach position in 2020, like coming into this year, he actually he had no support. He had no structure. And one of the things that we see very often with super teams is that you really need a lot of structure around your team. Whether you're having rookies, like what FlyQuest did with their rookies, they brought an Arrow from Team Liquid Academy. They brought him in to specifically coach just the bottom lane. And obviously, we've seen a lot of people talking about how, whether it's Whippo or Inspired, about how much Maso and Busio need to learn. Coaching infrastructure is not just one person. And when Mithy is placed on Cloud9 as a coach, he's an extremely intelligent player. That is his bread and butter. He's not a um, Gihoto who can sort of manage personalities. He's not a let's say like Grabs. Grabs might be a very good example back on G2. He's not a grabs, right? He's not someone who's going to try to figure out interpersonal dynamics, especially because he used to be a player. And what you need to remember with a lot of these players is that when you sacrifice a big part of your life, the years that you're supposed to be going to college and maturing, and just play, and you don't have father figures. Like when Mithy was in 2015, right? Or coaches, I guess. When he was in 2015, 2016 on G2 or on Origin, you don't have the type of coaches that are going to dominate and going to tell you what to do and going to turn you from a young man into an adult, right? That doesn't happen. That happens in sports, but we don't really have that in League of Legends. I mean, it's starting to develop. You have Grayson, like a Golden Glue, saying that that's one of his goals with his players on 100 Thieves, especially Sniper, is to mold them into adults. Um, but League of Legends back in 2015, 2016 did not have infrastructure. It didn't have nearly as much, authority for coaches. Like the book on coaching staff and how to be a good coach is still being written. Like the people that are coaching right now are the ones that are sort of paving the way for the future. We don't have 100 years of NBA coaching or NFL coaching. Like everybody can look back to Phil Jackson and what he did. You can look at Steve Kerr and what he's doing with the Warriors. There are all these amazing coaches that you can look at, but we don't have that in League of Legends. Because most people are very, very young. We have very few professionals. And when I say professional, I mean someone who played like professional sports. Yeah, Sharks was a professional, right? He played professional tennis, but even then, it's not really a team game unless you're doing doubles. But still, it's very different having a group of people, and that leads to when you don't see it done and you don't go through that experience, you don't learn how to do this. Um, and I think that's one thing that you need to understand about Mithy as a person is that why do you expect him to have that skill set if he himself never went through that? Like that wasn't the reason he was successful. It was his intelligence. He was a very smart person in support, and they brought him in, and he was able to disseminate the ideas. He's able to take um, concepts and teach the players how to play those concepts. And on Cloud9, when you have players who have played for many, many years and have become professionals doing specific things, it is very, very difficult to convince them that, hey, let's do it this way instead. That is not something that is very easily done by someone who's very smart. So one example is I don't know if you guys watch the TV show, but Young Sheldon or just like The Big Bang Theory, I guess. Um, you can have someone who's extremely smart and understand something to the utmost like minute level, but in order to explain it to someone else, it is not it's not one to one. Teaching and knowledge are very different, and then coaching is another level beyond that. And they never really it's very difficult for someone who has coaching experience, kind of like sharks. We don't have many people who are coaches or have played professional sport and are smart enough about League of Legends or have played League of Legends at a professional level. We just don't have that. And I think that's an asset that a lot of people assume is in coaches, especially from the West, or at least in North America, because that's sort of how we're growing up. A lot of us, played or experienced some sort of, at school PE, seeing coaches, seeing our varsity teams, cheering for them and whatnot. It's sort of the culture here. So that's one thing that you're given a project that you might not necessarily be the best to handle because you think, oh, if you have a bunch of smart people, they're going to figure things out. I'm an engineer. That's not how that works. Normally, someone needs to take a leadership role. Normally, a lot of times it's the not smartest person who comes up and he's like, okay, well, what if we work it? And he sort of sets a plan, sets a direction for us. Um, they need a strong coaching staff. We need an NRG staff. Yes, I completely agree, especially with the players that you don't have Mithy playing support. You don't have someone like Sven who could. The team is so directionless. That's all I can describe it. The team is very good mechanically and directionless, and you can see this in their play, or you can see other co-streamers who are coaches or professional players that are watching them and saying, "Hey, their team fighting. The way they set up their team fights is not it's not crisp, it's not clean, it's almost thoughtless. Like, what are they doing, right? He needs an assistant coach. I think so. I think he needs to be an assistant coach instead of a head coach. Or maybe he is a head coach, but he takes on the role of like a strategic coach, and he can like sort of be the one in charge of most things, but the person who brings in that structure and whatnot could be an assistant coach. And I think that's part of the reason why they brought in High as well, is to bring a little bit more structure. If you looked at when they first announced that High was joining as a as a team manager, one of the things they said is that he wanted to be able to stop arguments, or maybe he feels like people aren't listening to Mithy. He wanted to come in and say, "Hey, we're kind of losing direction of where we're trying to go in this draft." So clearly, there was like interpersonal relationships. They need someone for that, and while Mithy can be an amazing mind for the game and can have a lot of strategies that he can try and teach his players, like the players did not play well. Like that's what you need to understand is when players don't play well, a lot of times it's not the coaching staff. You can see a coaching staff through their drafts, and I think one thing that was very prominent was that a lot of people were sad about or complaining about C9 drafts, but it made no sense to me because C9 drafted so many different things for their players. They drafted carries for Blabber, didn't work. They drafted tanks. They gave him Sejuani. They gave him his like one of all-time highest win records in Sejuani. It's just not in Maokai. Things weren't working for him, and it just seemed like the players weren't playing well, and Mithy was trying to give them whatever comfort they could. It's not just Mithy, obviously, Vagar V2 has a big say in draft, and he's not there, while they're drafting, but he can still affect in that way. I do think it says a lot about the team dynamic rather than the coaching. I think if you had a strong leader with a strong mind, even if he was telling you to do the wrong thing, it would do much better, and you saw Jojo trying to do that, but he's relatively new in that position, and it takes time to foster that kind of stuff. All right, let me catch up on chat because there's a bunch of stuff. He needs to start coaching. He needs assistant. Yeah, that's why in the first times he stepped down. Exactly. Yes, I forgot about that. Wayne's World. He did step down because that's just not. He's not. It's okay to be number 13 in a company. Like companies like Facebook, there are people who were the CEOs and CMOs and CFOs, and there are people who were like engineers on there to get it to start, and they're still millionaires and making a bunch of money and probably not working for the rest of their lives, but they knew their role. They knew that they didn't need to be in leadership or they didn't need to be in a specific place. This is what they can do very well, and I think Mithy, in terms of strategy, is an extremely intelligent coach, and we've seen that throughout years. Like he's proven it. It's not one of the things where we're kind of conjecture based on the teams he played. We've seen it and we've heard it from players too. Even Bwipo says like he's one of the smartest people I've talked about, and Bwipo is heralded as one of the smarter players. So he is smart, and I think once when you judge him on something that's not his strength, you can see he's a bad person. If you're judging a frog on how well he climbs a tree versus a monkey, like obviously the monkey's going to win. But if you judge a fish on how well he swims, that's probably a better analogy. Um, Last but was the other way around, point retracted. Oh, I'm not sure what that means. Bob says, I think people misunderstood the impact of a law coach versus traditional sports. I'm surprised at how low their impact on actual in-game playmaking. I think the coach in general, if you have a strategic coach like Mithy, it's to teach people how to play the game. When you have a coach like Grabs, when you have a coach like Young Buck, it's to play structure and to make it so that the players aren't self-sabotaging themselves. You want the players to consistently improve, whether it's on their team play or on their individual play, and you need some sort of structure because anytime you're putting young adults, whether they're teenagers or in their early 20s, in a room, five of them in a room together, problems will occur. There's literally like you can find five perfect people who are extremely proficient at the game, five chovies, you will still have problems. And so you need some sort of coaching staff. You need someone that can filter and provide good structure. And I think that's what Sharks brought on to IMT, for example. He talks a lot about the structure, about being late, for example, like what time they eat, what time they drink, like all this stuff that surrounds improving. Intentional learning rather than just like playing solo queue for the sake of playing solo queue. All of this stuff. You have Spawn, for example, who's someone who is heralded as bringing that sort of structure to Team Liquid as well. Um, Mithy seems good. Everyone's been good. Everyone who's been coached by him says he's good. I agree, Bob. When everyone says that, it clearly he's smart at the game. He's just needs someone to fill in the gaps um, that he doesn't bring. People just want to blame on C9, but not the players. I think the players are the biggest culprits. I'm a huge Blabber fan. I'm like, where was he? This was not 2020, 2021, all the way to 2023 Blabber. Like, this is not the goat of NA in terms of jungle. Where was Blabber? And I think a big part of it was he was trying to be selfless and adapt to the situation. And maybe he always had people who gave him more direction. Because back in like 2018, 2019, we knew Blabber and even 2020 to be this like Blabber crabber, right? He's just insane. He's just always going in, and he had teammates that sort of whether it was Niski, whether it was Perks at some time when he was here, whether it was in 2022 and 2023, it was Sven sort of guiding and adding direction to the game. He needs someone. He's like the hands, the brawn, and he needs a brain. And it seems like it. Even though when you hear him talk, he sounds very smart about the game. But maybe during the game, it's a little bit more difficult. If only the toxic Mithy from 2014 still exists, he would lay down the hammer. I don't know. C9 doesn't really like toxicity. They got rid of Eminez, and I'm pretty sure Jack is a non-confrontational person, but I can see him not wanting that. Mithy won twice in coach on C9, head coach 2023 spring. Yes, Mithy was a solid coach, but he was not good at managing personalities. Yes, SLJ. You when you have people who have different play styles and are known to play different things, it is very difficult to have them change what they want. There are very few players in the world who have ever done that on super teams. One of them who I love watching him play is 369. He is a hard carry. If you see him play on top esports, he is a pleasure to watch. But when he was playing on JDG last year, he knew what he had to do. Aatrox, Orin, Sign, whatever you need me to play, I'm going to play because this is our best way of playing the game. And the way he played around those things as well, playing weak side, not playing his carries, not playing summit style where you might be able to pick him an Ornn, but he's still going to play it as if a strong side. Um, not many players can do that. Not just want to do it, but can actually be successful doing it. Feel like just playing solo queue. Yes, it does. Like, a lot of people have said that it feels like they're not planning. They lack direction, and when something lacks direction, it's one of two things in my personal experience. It's two people are butting heads and can't come to a conclusion, and so we don't know what to do, or it's like we're fresh players who just don't know how to play the game. And obviously they're very experienced. They have, everyone on that team had won LCS, so it's probably the clash of ideas and just like being in limbo, not knowing what to do. But I think it's because of too many voices on the team. I think it's too many ideas, not too many voices. It sounds like no one's like doing anything or talking during the game. So I would say more too many voices rather than too many ideas rather than actual people voicing their plays. Because it could be like Vulcan has an idea of how to play the mid game, but then Blabber has a different idea, and so he just doesn't do it because it's not his idea and he's not proficient at it. Um, who plays scared for no reason? Yeah, it feels like Blabber and JoJo have a different view from Fudge, different Vulcan and Berserker. Yes, as well. Like Berserker, what he needs in order to be Berserker from 2022 and 2023 is very different than what it seemed like Vulcan's skill is. He's not a laning support. Although he was back in, he plays more engaged. Um, his ranged like carries, his Renata looked honestly like mine, and that's really sad to hear. Fudge plays like someone who told you are weak side and has zero trust in the team, get things done elsewhere. Yeah, Fudge is like glow down, I guess, whatever the opposite glow up is very confusing to me, and I think it's probably part of the environment of being on C9. Um, you can get very, very frustrated and demotivated when you have people on a team and you feel like you're going nowhere, like you're running around in circles, going nowhere fast. It can really easily spiral into you're just not playing well because whenever you do try to go for something, Blabber might not be on the same page. Okay, well, I'm going to do what Blabber wants. Oh, Vulcan and Berserker are on the same page. And it's just like, okay, I'm just not going to do anything because anytime I try to do something, no one's on the same page. And it can get very, very frustrated. And I think he probably can get back into shape on a different team with more direction, maybe like on a team like 100 Thieves. I'm not saying replace Sniper, but just as an example, a team that has a very clear direction, has very clear shot callers, I think could probably do much better. Hi, Truman. We're on the same oh, wait, someone's responding to someone. I disagree. Fudge could literally said in an interview his playstyle is taking very little risk at all time. Oh, wait, I missed what Syndratic said. Oh my god, I missed a bunch of stuff. Wait, hold up. Yeah, Fudge plays like someone who's told weak side because so much for the players. I don't think give away players for cheap. It's like KC, which means I don't think the problem is only Fudge. Yeah, I don't think Fudge was the only problem. I think clashing of the dynamics is probably a much bigger problem than the actual players individually. You can say something about just like a square not fitting in a circle hole or vice versa, rather than like the puzzle pieces just don't click. And that's one thing actually that Berserker mentioned. He said like it feels like we have a puzzle, and the puzzle like a painting made of puzzle pieces, and we just haven't been able to line up those puzzle pieces yet. But once we do, once we click in everyone together, we're going to be firing on all cylinders. But I kind of skewed. Lyra played more like 10 champs this split, which shows the team is directionless. I don't blame Mithy on that. I actually like SLJ. I see what you're saying about like, well, if Blabber's playing all these different champions, then there's no direction. And I think that's because the players aren't doing what they're told to do on scrims because it sounds like they're playing very well on scrims. So when you're doing very well on scrims and you go on stage and you play the same thing, but you play it so differently, it's going to be like, okay, well, maybe he's not comfortable on stage on, his Xin Zhao or his Lee Sin, so give him something else. I do think I think it can go both ways. I see your point, SLJ. I guess that I would leave it to um, conjecture, I guess, at this point. Personally, Mithy is great. I think sometimes change is good. You break up with someone, even the relationship. Also, I think a harder leader might help. The other problem, Syndratic, with leadership is that Cloud9 has these systems, and I don't know much about it, but it, as a personally, it seems a little daunting to go into a team that already has a structure. Like I can't when I come in, I can't bring in my own structure. So why are you bringing me in to be a harder coach, right? I disagree with Fudge Take. Fudge literally said in an interview, yeah, right, problem if you're not playing text, get counter pick carries. It's fine to play that way if you're playing on tanks, not carries. Yeah, but it's just not a tank meta. SLJ top lane is so pivotal, so important, so impactful. The split. Um, I think we just keep another point. Fudge takes zero risks. That's someone your weak side. Yes, I see what you guys are talking about. You're on the same page. Theory. Fudge doesn't have much say. Plays zero risk AFK game planning. Yeah, it sounded like from what a lot of players were saying, especially Whippo, is like, man, this guy just isn't doing anything. He's just straight up not doing anything. Apparently, Blabber took a seat back while planning out the game because JoJo wanted to be more prominent in calls. This was confirmed in a Cubby stream. Interesting. So maybe yeah, I mean I guess it makes sense. If you look at his play, it seemed like he was not doing things that he normally would do. Like his aggressiveness is being neutered a little bit. And I thought at first maybe it's because they weren't on the same page, but maybe it's because they're giving JoJo all the handles because you saw back last split, or I guess two splits now in summer on EG, like you put all your eggs in JoJo basket, JoJo will carry you. But it just seemed like he wasn't able to carry hard enough. I mean, they made it third. Like again, he did carry you pretty far, just not far enough. JoJo selfless played in calm, Vulcan, same style, quiet and wants direction, but doesn't force it. Yeah, you need someone who's like a smoothie, I guess, back in 2019, where he's just like, I'm just gonna call everything and I don't care. You need an XU. Honestly, XU would be really cool in this team because he's gonna just if you listen to XU or his comms, he's just shot calling all the time. He's like, I don't even know if I'm right. And if I'm wrong, Rich or Dove might say, like, no, let's not do that. But in general, I'm just like, shot calling because that's the only way I'm gonna learn how to do it is by trying to do it. The only players that can be selfish with direction is Berserker, but he seems checked out. To me, it doesn't seem like if you listen to Berserker in interviews and whatnot, he seems pretty upset at what's going on. Like Bob, he really wants to succeed, and he knows that he can be like he takes a lot of responsibility actually as being an import, and I find that very valuable mentality. He's like, look, I'm a Korean in North America, which means I am taking what a very precious spot. It's not like they don't have other players that could replace. Like Stixays is available, right? And he's pretty good as well. There's Sven, who's also like, technically not an import, but I need to outwork everyone and I need to play better than everyone. And I think that shows you why he became Berserker, right? That mentality and the fact that he's not able to play well, the fact that his team isn't playing well around him, the fact that there is no direction is really frustrating him. And you could hear it in interviews, like the interview he did with me and the Cloud9 sort of documentary thingy that they do up to the skies. I don't something about the clouds or skies. I don't know its name. Daniel Flores says the more weight Fudge lost, the heavier. That's funny. The more weight Fudge lost, the heavier his team is to carry. Well, he wasn't really doing any carry. Truman, have you? ever smoked weed? I'm not sure if that's asking me. I think he is asking me. I have never smoked weed. I've never smoked a cigarette or anything like that. Which League character would you want to smoke a blunt with? If I had to, probably Gangplank, because Gangplank probably has a lot of really cool stories to tell. Um, Probably Lucian because he's cool. Yeah, I can see that, Truman. Something's up with the Berserker though, like the point where I think something's going to come out at some point. Like he wants to show that he doesn't want to be here. I think maybe Bob. I don't know that he doesn't want to be here. It sounds like he chose to stay on Cloud Nine. He could have went to Team Liquid with a lot of other Koreans. That's another thing about having a structure with Koreans, which I'll get to in a little bit. It's like in my notes to talk about, but I just want to catch up with the comments. Taylor Christian says C9 drafts were bad. Is not coaching main responsibility? Yes and no. A lot of times, a coach, like if you look at weeks 1 through 3, for example, they had a very specific direction. And it seemed like that's what the players had all agreed to. And that's what the coaching staff thought was best to play. And then it seemed like they were in all panic mode and they were just giving players whatever they wanted to because the players were a little bit strong arming Mithy because Mithy is not the greatest at personality management. And it is a coaching problem. I just think if you bring in Mithy, you don't bring him for managing personality. That's why they brought in High, and it seemed like High just wasn't it for them for whatever reason. Um, so yes, it's a coaching staff's problem. I think it's more of a hiring problem. Like if you wanted to have two coaches, maybe you bring in Mithy, you don't bring in Vigar V2, and you bring in someone else like a Sharks or a Grabs or someone else. Obviously, with their budget, they had to pay Jojo a lot. It's a very expensive roster, and Mithy himself said, like, look, it's not like I don't want help. I want help. It's just budgets are a thing. The league has shrunk. The money isn't there, and we have to do with whatever we have to do. And if I'm gone next split, that's the nature of sports. And then next split, he's gone. Um, players collectively have a lot more sway on draft than any coach, apparently, which is surprising to me, but it's a different wisdom. Actually, so Cloud9 tried to do a very different system to split. They tried to take very little influence on what players have to say and basically do all the draft beforehand. So instead of having meetings every week before the games about what they want to draft and whatnot, they will figure out, okay, what are we performing best on? What do we think are the best? We ask the players what they are comfortable playing, and then we prep our own draft. And they tried that, and it seemed like they reverted back to the before. They were like, "Hey, we're trying this. We can always revert back, but the reason we're doing this is because it seems like a lot of people are strong arming each other during draft, and there's no cohesion. And sometimes someone wants to play something and doesn't understand that it might not go well in the draft. We wanted more say in the draft, and they did that. Clearly, didn't work once Cloud9 after the first 3 games weren't hot, and they went back to how it always was, which you can see a lot of their drafts are going in two different directions. You're playing a full engage comp with like, you're not playing a full engage. I'm sorry. You're playing two engaged champions with scaling champions and then a poke champion. You have like no cohesion between the champions, even though individually each lane might be fine, which is a big part of the game. Draft is not easy. We think it's like, oh, it's so easy to get a good draft. It really isn't. It's a lot more complicated. Where was I? It's also not like Fudge never played tank or weak side. Yes, Dome. He was pretty good at weak side like last year when he did. Thoughts on I will dominate being arrested for smuggling crack through TSA. Well, considering I just watched one of his videos yesterday, and I saw him streaming. I didn't watch his co-stream for the Team Heretics game versus Fnatic, but I don't think he he was doing that. But I appreciate the the reference from when everyone was saying I will dominate as on crack back in 2014, 2015, because I think he always looked like sometimes you actually get panic attacks and have to pause the game and be like, oh, he has to go backstage to smoke crack or something. But I think Mickey works better as assistant coach or CG coach. Yes, SLJ. I think we all agree with that. I think strategic coach is probably where he wants to be in. Like strategy is probably his strong suit, and I think that's like he needs to accept that. And I think he's trying to level up and be a head coach, but at the end of the day, like it was a failure of an infrastructure of like around him for him to do that. That was my favorite thing. Crack could dominate. Yeah, Crack will dominate. I don't know. I felt it was kind of mean back then, back in 2015, when everyone was saying that. And then when he came out and he was like, "Yeah, I was just like having all these panic attacks on stage, and I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was gonna die, and I couldn't breathe." And it kind of made me feel a bit sympathetic towards him. But it was pretty funny. I will agree. I think Mithy works. Yes, Fudge also isn't the type of player to just take control. Eminem said in his manifesto, he was trying to be the mediator between the clashing parties and the team. I think Fudge has only been in the league like what, 21, 21, 22, 23. This is his 4th year. I think it takes a while to develop into that kind of personality. Like, you're brought into a different region than when you were born and raised. You're brought into, like, a very high pressure team, which is Cloud9, which is you're with that perks roster. You didn't have any say afterwards. LS is brought in, and, like, the coaching staff, every single split, coaching staff or players are changed. He was never in a stable environment, and I think Fudge can develop to be a leader, sort of how Bjergsen, like when Bjergsen first came in, he wasn't calling anything. He was just like this mechanical god, right? And then after a while, he became better. So I think that that's the type of thing that that's the type of player he can develop into being. I don't think he's there yet, though. Oh, you want to blue pass it here? All right, you can really pass us then. On the Berserk being present of set points of the games, he's just so cute. Yeah, yeah. You want to pass us then? I'll get you a really yeah. Wasn't there a game we had like 7 souls in 10 minutes? Like, no, it was 10 souls in 7 minutes. Some crazy number like that, Bop. It was crazy. And then the next game he had like 50 in 10 minutes or something. Smoke a joint with Scion. Scion's dead. Does smoking actually do anything to him? Vasco? The Senna versus Flackwitz game, read a sealer for me. His play looked completely wrong to the point where he knows what he was doing is weak. I don't know. I'd have to watch that game again. But yeah, Berserker does not look like Berserker from 2022 or 2023. And I think you can say that him playing with Vulcan is not, they don't have that synergy. I would love for them to go together to Korea, boot camp, which I think they are doing, and do what Vulcan did with Mithy back in 2020. Like when Mithy joined, not Mithy, sorry, Sven. When Sven joined in 2020 to Cloud9, they boot camped. They became the best bot lane. They were better than Core DJ Double Lift, and they just played really, really well together. And I think that I really hope for them to like build synergy and figure out how they want to play. He's a millionaire off streaming now, so I don't feel bad anymore. Fair enough. I don't know. Regardless of whether you have money or not, you can still be affected by things. So, and back then he wasn't a millionaire. So, I think Fudge would Shopify. No, not on Shopify. I don't know that I think we want to be very scrappy. We want to be like a what is like a W, not a WE, who's like a FPX kind of, no. What's a very scrappy team? I guess OMG was kind of scrappy. I think I would rather have someone who's playing very aggressively alongside Boogie and Insanity. And I think the way Fudge plays might not be ideal to play with Shopify. You can see he might be, I mean, he'd be an upgrade to Fake God, but I'd hope that Fake God plays more aggressively. NRG, I can see him fitting on NRG. I can see him be a voice of reason on NRG. I think they need that. But both teams need a stable top side. I think so. I agree. Dokla was not at this split. Neither was Fake God. Fudge can do. Yes, he can do. Like, I think he's still good. I agree. I think he's still good. Something changed post MSI 2023. He actually said what it was. He stopped trying to be better than international top laners and decided I'm just going to be better than my domestic. Like, I just want to be very, very solid domestically. I don't want to just keep ignoring what's happening domestically and think of the future, because what ends up happening is like we lost last split and that wasn't even on my radar. So I think NRG needs not Dokla. I love that, Bop. They need not Dokla. And give Palfox another shot. Assume bat split. I agree. Um, like, I'll never forgive Fudge for almost throwing the Fnatic versus C9 game 1 and then refusing to TP early and instead push a wave to fix. Oh, yeah, in game 3? Yeah. I don't know if that was a team call, if that was a Fudge call, but that was a very depressing game because I thought they could have won that. Unfortunate. Would they have beat, who were they playing? Weibo? I don't think so, but either way, I would have much preferred to beat both G2 and Fnatic, like knock both of them out. That would have been really cool. But I can forgive him because at the end of the day, like, it's competition. You're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some. But Dokla just, I don't know. I think Fudge is good. I think so too. I think Fudge is still good. He's not like 2022 Fudge where he just decided he was gonna destroy everyone with Fiora and Jax, specifically Fiora, but he's good. SLJ, you got Fudge living in your head rent free. I know, Wade. Yeah, I definitely think Fudge can return to being top 3 in NA. He's been for most career. The hate, yeah, it's so insane. It's hard being on a top team because you're gonna get, like, previously it was TSM, now it's Cloud9. If you're on Cloud9, you're gonna get so much hate. The same people. It's funny if you look at people's history thread, not their post thread on Reddit, but their comment. It's like, we need to get rid of Fudge, and then Fudge plays well against 100 Thieves, and it's like, oh my god, I had full belief in Fudge. And it's like, come on, man. Cloud and Inspired buying Jensen, burying Jensen Degon interview post LCS finals. They're both European. I think it's fine, Taylor. I think clearly they talk about it. Inspired the type of person who's already talked to his teammates about it to begin with. And Jensen is kind of like in his zen mode where he just doesn't care about people anymore. He's like, I'm gonna play, I'm gonna try my best, and I don't care what the public says. The public has been on my side in 2016. They hated me in 2017 because of my echo. Like at this point, I've seen it all. I don't care. I think I'm a good player, and I'm gonna just prove it through my actions rather than my words. That's at least the impression I got when talking to him. So I don't actually mind him, what Inspired said. Like I think it's fine. Also, the fact is he really gonna find out about it? I don't think Jensen goes around and watches people's interviews, if I'm being honest. Um, I genuinely think Fudge is very good, but their macro blow up is nuking top lane almost specifically. Like, here's the thing that you were talking about macro. A lot of times they put Fudge in bad positions, and people just don't talk about it. If you watch Kelsey Moser, like sometimes she'll talk about it, but besides her, and maybe I will dominate. I haven't seen anyone talk about it. There was this whole sequence when they played Team Liquid back in the second time they met in the spring split, where Team Liquid does a lane swap and Fudge has to match, but Fudge has a favorable matchup. But because they lane swap late, because they weren't expecting the lane swap, they put Fudge in a position where he can't extend his lead on Udyr. And then he ended up being like matching the Cassante rather than being ahead and being able to take towers and whatnot. And all of that was because of a macro movement. But people are like, oh, Fudge isn't doing anything on Udyr, but it's not his fault. Um, it's a whole team thing, right? Maybe he could have called it earlier. Maybe the bot lane could have said, hey, we don't know where they are. I don't know, but I'm not a professional player. But again, trying to pin the blame on one player when it's not an obvious egregious thing where he's just like flashing in and dying every game is not very beneficial, I think, because a lot of times we just don't know. Um, where was I? Generally very good. Yeah, I don't think they're player hands problem. I think so too. I don't think it's player hands problems. Fudge is the most frustrating player I've ever watched. He has insane potential. Yes, I thought he was just like sometimes you think he's just going to keep going up, and then there was that little sliver in 2022 summer where he was like bringing it all back together, and you thought he was going to do it, but then it just doesn't happen, unfortunately. Um, or player brain, yeah. Inspired was just being honest. The narrative about Inspired trashing is pushed too hard. It's because we're in North America. I don't know if you're in North America, Wayne, but at least in the US, if someone says that, it's like really bad manners to say that about your teammate, and it's considered very, very toxic. When in reality, Inspired isn't toxic. He's very misunderstood. He's not toxic. He's direct. He will not beat around the bush. But he's not going to say like, "Hey, you suck. Like you're the reason we're bad." He's like, "Hey, you did this wrong, and this is how we're going to improve. We did this twice wrong in two scrims in a row. That's not acceptable. We need to play better." That's direct. That's not toxic. But in North America, that is toxic. In North America, you go to the coach, and the coach is the one that has to do that. Um, but obviously, like we said in the beginning, we don't have that coaching structure. So then it's like a room where people aren't allowed to be direct towards each other. Um, yeah, honestly, got a lot of people blocked on the C9 sub because I CBA reading Fudge hate. Yeah, it's kind of messed up. Don't I stopped going on the Cloud9 subreddit, the split, because it was just like it was Cloud9 wins a game. Oh my God, Cloud9 is back. We love you, Lord and Savior JoJo. And then Cloud9 loses a game. Oh my God, get rid of Mithy, get rid of Sven, get rid of not sorry Sven, get rid of Vulcan, get rid of Fudge, get rid of everyone. It's like, come on, can you guys just like trust the process or at least give some sort of constructive something other than get rid of this person? I think Jensen is going to, I think is going to find out about it. It's a big interview now, is it? Let me take a quick look. I watched it, but Degon. 21K views in a day. Actually, yeah, it's a lot bigger than the TLAPA one, which he won. That's hilarious. Oh, because he fumes about vegan mid play. Okay, the title probably is a big reason why that happened. Um, even if he does find out about it, I don't think it's a big problem, in my opinion. Knowing like from speaking to the players very like shortly, I spoke to each one of them like 10 minutes, and obviously I followed their careers, but um, I might have like a little bit extra insight. Uh, if only Klatsitsky got the spicy interview with Inspired, would press pass to media. I don't know if I'm going to be doing anything within MSI. I might have some interviews, but I personally didn't even want to take interviews. I wasn't even around to take interviews. I was traveling all of March. I was actually back home Sunday, so I could have, but I didn't apply. So they need to give you a ticket to travel. No, I can't travel. I have work. I mean, I hope Degon goes, but I work full time. I can't really I already took my month vacation. Maybe if I didn't take that vacation and like took a month off to go to China, I'd be able to do it. But I'm not that invested, and I also don't have anyone buying me a ticket to go there. So either way, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I'd love to at some point go to like an international event, maybe Worlds. It's going to be in Europe. We'll see. I don't know what this title is about. Like, even if Mithy is a good coach, it doesn't mean C9 didn't have a coaching problem. Yes, I agree. Numer, you can like go back and see. I agree that it's a coaching problem. I think it's more a hiring problem. Like, you didn't hire a personality coach for a team that probably really needed a personality coach, and then you brought in a very smart strategic coach, and then you were like, oh, Mithy is a bad coach. No, he's a really good strategic coach. He's just not a personality coach. He said it himself. People they brought in high to fill in that to plug that hole. And if anything, it's a high problem because he wasn't able to do that. Those are my 2 cents, Numer. Fudge lane swap, exactly. They're macro blue hitting him hard. Play for Jojo, Zerker, Fudge, and he gets smacked their macro strategy. Uh, I don't understand exactly what's going on, Bob, with that comment. You brought in more interviews to LCS Pro than Travis Gafford can do in a year. Thank you for that. Yeah, Wayne, I did actually. I did the most interviews. At some point, I had more. I think by week 3, going into week 4, I had posted more interviews than every single other interviewer had done collectively in the LCS, including Ashley King. Um, so yeah, I tried to do as many interviews as I could because I was like, oh, the like Travis Gafford has like 300 interviews on me, probably like 1,000 interviews on me, right? Compared to myself. So the only way I'm going to do better is I'm going to improve and like catch up to someone like Travis or Thorin or Degon is by doing all the interviews that I possibly could. So I requested every single player, every single day, every single game, which is crazy, but I did it. So, and I'm glad that people noticed that I brought in a lot of interviews and whatnot. Um, Everything everyone sees is Fudge fault in people's eyes. Yeah, people thinking that it's Fudge fault or like trying to blame one specific person is crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Split wasn't Fudge's fault, but long term he was plateauing. I agree, Numer. And I don't know if it's because of the environment that he's in. I do want to talk about environment once I catch up with the comments. But it's something people don't think about. And it's kind of crazy to me because I guess I do a bunch of language learning and I've taught people how to learn languages and I've taught languages as well. And environment is a huge part of it. Sludge factor? Oh, come on, Truman. I'm new to watching competitive leagues, so I ask one question perspective of a fan watching traditional sports. That's why I brought up the inspired interview comments. I see Taylor Christian. Yeah, it's very rare to happen in League of Legends, especially North American League of Legends. You'll see that a lot in European. Like if you listen to the old G2 or like Perks, they will flame each other left and right and be like, "Oh yeah, he played this so poorly." But yeah, we move on. It's not normal in North America. And I hope that we don't like neuter inspired directiveness because it's very important on a team, in my opinion. I think Reaver is perfect for this team because we bring out the belt when people don't listen to him. SLJ. I'll talk about that in a second. Classic is the goat. No one can do it like him. Thank you, Truman. I just meant C9 is playing for JoJo and Berserker getting ahead. I see. I understand now, Pop, what you said. Every problem side lane, try to shove up with the foot. Even if he's ahead, he won't be for long. It's a macro problem, not Fudge. I agree. Like they're so lost. Even the way they set up fights is so poor. I've watched Cloud9 play since when they came in 2013 summer. Yes, I've watched them play since I don't know that I watched all their games, but I've watched the majority of their games throughout their time in LCS. They never look so clueless around how to like position, how to put their wards, where to put their wards, how to like play together. It almost seemed like Vulcan wasn't peeling for Berserker when obviously Berserker had like 5 kills. It's mind-boggling to me that they don't understand that they couldn't figure out how to click. Um, I really think they had a good strategic coach. They just didn't have a person coach to like say, hey, Berserker. Maybe they needed to teach Berserker this. Maybe Sven was really good because he was an AD carry and he was really good at telling, hey, this is what Berserker needs at this point, and Berserker isn't as articulate to say, hey, this is what I need at these times. And so the players aren't playing that for him. But I feel like at this point, you should learn how to do that. I don't blame Fudge for the season, but I agree Fudge felt like he stopped caring about the details about the game, which is odd. Yes, that is very, very odd. And I think it's an environment thing. Because he's a detail-oriented guy, C9, or where to be, when to fight, how to fight. They look intermediate. Like what they said, they're just NPCs at this point. What the hell happened? Yeah, they're near us. Let us fight. Yeah, they're shot calling just went away. I think losing Max Waldo was also horrible for Cloud9 the scene as a whole. Losing your positional coach obviously makes you worse / improving harder. Yeah, I mean, just look at how many coaches NRG had last year compared to what Cloud9 had. And then when NRG was much more prepared and had clearly done more improvement throughout the split than Cloud9, you can tell that coaching is OP, right? Good coaching is OP, bad coaching is detrimental. And I think we're at a point where we've gotten rid of a lot of the bad coaches and we have a lot of really good coaches. And it shows, especially players like players. So as the amount, so look at how mediocre Doka looks. And look at how he looked mediocre in the past. And look at how Soaz brought the best out of that player. That is insane to me. The fact that a player can get so much glow up and that positional coach doesn't get any credit for how well that player played. I'm a huge Soaz fan to begin with, so maybe it's a little biased, but still. Berserker succeeded with a Korean and Sven on his teams. Environment matters. Yes, it does. I even asked him about that, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm lonely. Like I'm the only Korean on the team, but I'm taking it on the chin and I'm moving forward." From Fletcher's interview, Sven said that Max Waldo was a bad head coach, and it was him and Blabber coaching the team with Revan as assistant. Ooh, I watched that Sven interview. I don't remember this. I got to go back and watch this. SLJ. Thank you for bringing this up. C9 with Dardoch would be. I don't know about that, Derving. Dardoch was a player. I'll say that much. I think Reaper being Korean would also experience an A will help tremendously. Absolutely. I agree, Numer. Is Vulcan the right support for Berserker? I don't know, Taylor. I think they need some synergy. I would give it one more split where they go to Korea, boot camp, get like duo Q all the way up to Masters or wherever it's allowed, and get really, really good together. And then if it doesn't work, then probably not. But I do think he can. I'm Lathan News. I didn't even let the leg with you. Oh, come on, Bob. You didn't know that? There's no way. The entire conversation, you thought that they still had Mithy? No, they brought in Reaper, dude. Yeah, but Coach Malice said that he works super hard to focus on the wrong things, but also thrust into that position. Oh yeah, now I remember it, Dome. You're right. You're right. I remember that talking about him. I forgot that he was head coach at some point, but yeah, when they got rid of LS, uh, yeah, I mean he was thrust into it, so it's kind of hard to judge him, in my opinion. He also implies something inside video 2022. All right, I will watch that SLJ. It was 2 days ago. Give me some credit. That's true, but it was pretty big. I guess I should have said that in the beginning. But yeah, I do want to talk about environment a little bit, and then I'll catch up with the comments afterwards. Reaper, though, yeah, I agree. Environment is actually very, very important, and if you're bringing in Koreans, especially if you're like your Team Liquid, just look at the environment Team Liquid has for Koreans. They have, first of all, Core JJ, who's a Korean. They have Impact right now, who's also Korean. But even before, when they didn't have Impact, they have Dodo. They have Korean chefs. They have Korean people speaker. They have Rainover. They have a bunch of Korean people who've lived in North America, have experienced North America, and can sort of provide this either a big brother kind of thing if you're bringing in someone younger, which is very important in their culture, or someone who can at least speak your language. The Berserker not having anyone speaking his language is very, very difficult. And I'll give you an example, at least from my personal life. When I went to Korea, I spoke specifically only in Korean. I didn't speak any English when I was there. It was only for a couple weeks. But towards the end, I was getting kind of tired. Like it was a little mentally tolling, not being able to speak in your first or second language. Korean's my third language. That's why I say first or second, because I'm more fluent in the other two. But it's actually very difficult. And not just that, just being in a place where you don't know what you can do. Like it's very tolling on a person. And it just becomes it can take away from your gameplay because you're not comfortable. And one thing about reaching your maximum potential as players, which is what these players are trying to do, is the environment matters very much because mental burnout can make you play worse. And a lot of players play worse because of mental burnout, including Korean teams. And I will give you a very, very explicit example that you can say, oh, that definitely did affect them. In 2018, so 2016, the finals was between SKT, they were still SKT at that time, and they were Samsung, what were they? Samsung Galaxy at that time? Yes, Samsung Galaxy, with Ruler, Core JJ, QV, Crown, and I forget their jungler. It wasn't Score. Ambition is their jungler, right? So Core JJ was on that team, and they make it all the way to finals. They make it to game 5. They almost reverse speak SKT, and they lose game 5, right? They go in. First of all, they made it through the lower bracket. They made it through the gauntlet. Now there's no more gauntlet, but they made it through the gauntlet. So they played the most amount of any LCK team to get all the way to Worlds. They made it all the way to finals. They did that again in 2017. They had to go all the way down to the gauntlet, basically coming as third seed from Korea, going all the way to the finals and winning 3-0. Then they did it a third time in 2018. It was a 3-year journey. And by the time they made it to that group stage, they were so burned out. Core DJ was telling me, because I was asking him about this, I wanted to do a video on it, that he was so burnt out that they just couldn't play properly. As soon as one thing went wrong, even though they were really, really good players, they were the reigning world champions. They had just beat every other, like two other, all the other Korean teams to make it there. They collapsed. They collapsed because they didn't have, they were so burnt out. They didn't have the mental fortitude to keep going, and they became the first and only team to ever and will ever, unless Riot brings back the format, not make it out of groups and finish fourth. By the way, they didn't just finish like third barely, like some TES teams. No, no, they finished fourth, which is absolutely embarrassing for a Korean team. And then he comes back refreshed, get rusts up, goes to Team Liquid, and guess what? He makes it to MSI finals. He wins. He wins North America. Looks extremely good. Looks so much better than he did in 2018, and makes it to MSI finals. What happened between 2018 and 2019? He was able to get some rest, right? He had a 3-year journey, which was very, very stressful on him, and the environment became very toxic because it was the same group of people, and problems kept festering up, and they kept trying to shove it down because they were winning, because they made it to Worlds finals, because they won Worlds, because they made it to Worlds again. And after a while, it can take a toll on you. And that's a bunch of Koreans living in Korea, in their culture, in their environment that they're used to. Now imagine Berserker, for example, who is in a different environment, doesn't speak fluently the language that everyone around him speaks. Like him trying to express one thing takes so much longer in English than in Korean, because not only does he have to translate, he doesn't have the vocabulary to even say what he's trying to say. Like when I was talking to him, he had an idea of what he was trying to say, but he couldn't get it through. And most of the time, he's able to communicate what he's trying to say, but it's not the way he wants to say it. And sometimes I told him like, hey, if you want to speak Korean, there's no problem, and he does. And sometimes it's very simple things that in English you wouldn't think you would need translation, but it does get to you. It really does, and it can become very, very frustrating, because it can add that extra stress that can cause the team to not function as well as it should be. And then because it's not functioning as well as it should be, that adds even more stress. Now, this is like obviously at the highest level because these people are competing under a lot of pressure. In normal day-to-day life, it's not as stressful, but because these people are competitors and they're competing at the highest level, right? Like Berserker made it to MSI last year, he made it to Worlds, and then this year he didn't make it to MSI, but the year before he made it to Worlds as well. So that's like 3 years where he's just like playing as much League of Legends, 3 splits in a row, as much League of Legends as he can, as possibly can, right? From a North American team. And it's pretty stressful. And so I think bringing in Reaper, bringing in more Koreans will help. The same thing happened with Boogie, for example. So Boogie is someone who publicly said this, right, on TSM Legends when he first joined TSM, that first split. They had Maple in mid lane, right? They didn't have any Koreans. He was the only Korean on that team, and he said, "I felt so lonely." He's played in many different. He played in LLA. He made it to the finals. He almost won that game. He was like one game away from winning LLA. He won PCS. He played in Japan. He played in all these different regions. But at the end of the day, when he was in North America, he said it was my first time being the only Korean. I felt so lonely. I couldn't make friends with anyone. I just felt like I was by myself, and you could see that in his play. And then the next split, they bring in Insanity. They bring in what's his name? They brought in Revan, right? And Revan was Korean, and instantly his play became better. And it's not just because he had Insanity and Ruby. Obviously, he was there, even though he didn't start. He was there. He felt a lot more comfortable. This split as well. He had Revan. He has Fake God, doesn't really speak much Korean, so I don't know that I want to say that, but he has at least B-Boy. Having an environment where you're not just bringing one Korean is very important. And I think LS understood this, and that's why he tried to bring 2 Koreans with him. He tried to bring in Winsome, who I think is Korean originally or something like that. And yeah, and he brought in Summit, who was also Korean, and just have a Korean environment. Cloud9 used to do this. They had Impact, they had Ray, they would always try to keep Reaper with a bunch of. They had Rainover. They always tried to keep a bunch of Koreans together because they're able to support each other. And when I asked Berserker, he did say that it was a bit stressful and lonely and like hard to be the only Korean on the team and not be able to communicate efficiently. But it's he's okay with it because he made the decision to come to North America. Obviously, if you're bringing in people like Castle and Mask, for example, I think it can be a little stressful, especially for Mask. Especially for Castle. Mask played in Europe before, but not having an environment where you can speak freely, where you can just learn how to live. That's the crazy thing. I stayed in Brazil. Like last year, I was in Brazil for 4 months of the year, right? And being in Brazil, If I didn't have I have family there, but if I didn't have family there and I was just by myself, it would be very difficult to learn how to live, to learn, like, where things are, to learn how to do stuff because they do stuff differently, right? And even the way they wash their floors is different. Like, if I over here, I could just grab a vacuum because everything is carpet, but over there, there are no carpets, and you don't really vacuum the floors. You mop them and you sweep them, and you like, it's just even just the way that your cleanliness is different. Um, and so living in a different country with a language that you don't know is or are not fluent in is actually difficult. It is quite difficult. And that is a huge burden on a player. So when you're bringing in a player from like a different country, let's say Korea, right? Because that's where we historically import from. Europe has very similar culture to America and language, so it's not that big of a deal. But from Korea, you're bringing in someone who doesn't speak the language. He has a barrier, right? So he has to be so much better in order to make up for that delta of stress and tiresome and like mental awareness and like the loss of fortitude, right? Um, it becomes difficult. It becomes very difficult, and you can see why Gory looked so bad towards the end of his time. Like he stayed a whole year basically. He went to MSI. He played very well for like all the way until spring split and a summer split ended. They finished 15-3. He played really well. They were tied for first. They lost a tiebreaker if I'm not mistaken. But it gets to you. It gets to you a lot. Even though they did have another Korean on that team with River, and Huhi, they had 2 Koreans. It can st he's you can still get lonely even if you have a Korean chef. Environment is very important. And sometimes it's difficult to be friends with your opponents. Like, it's difficult for a Gory to be good friends with a Core JJ, for example, because you're about to play, right? Um, on the biggest of stages, and it's not easy to have the time to go and hang out every night or even talk or text. Maybe they're trying to don't want to be too friendly with you. It can be very stressful, and when you're trying to create a team to dominate, to be the best at in the entire region, you need to take away as many things as possible that could possibly be a detriment, right? Every percentage at that high of 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 um of class, right? When you're at the highest level, every percentage point, every 1 or 2 points is actually a very big difference because that's what makes a difference between winning a championship and not. It's not very rarely do we see a team that's like 10 times better than the other team where becoming 1 or 2% better doesn't matter. That's very rare. I think the only time that may have happened is like 2020 Cloud9. That's like the most recent time that that's happened. Um, spring split, not even summer split. All right. Can we talk about Reaper as well? Sure, SLJ. What do you want to talk about Reaper? I think that he's someone that has been in North America for a good amount of time. He understands the culture. He's comfortable. He's been on different teams with like 100 Thieves and Cloud9. He's Korean, but he's been coaching for a very long time. He used to be a pro player, so he understands. I think Reaper is a very good pickup. And I think he's played with Blauer before, and he's probably a very good personality coach. I just don't know where they're going to get the strategic part from if they got rid of Mithy. If they made Mithy the assistant coach or the strategic coach and brought in Reaper, I would be much more excited. But they're bringing in a rookie, right? And obviously you have leadership from Reaper, but who's teaching him the game? Who's like teaching him to who's bringing ideas and guiding the team together? It seems like Reaper might need someone, and who knows, maybe they're hiring another person, but that's just my 2 cents. Mithy and Sven smiling from their side. True, and you're such a troll. I guess I'm skeptical of Reaper because 2020 is summer. Don't know what happened to them, Numer. I don't know either. I think I heard some reflection about what happened to them from was this Sven? Did I really watch that episode? I think I did. I have to rewatch it. I don't remember exactly what happened to them, honestly, so I can't make stuff up. 100T bringing in River mainly to help Quid, mainly for helping Quid. Yeah, Taylor, they did a very good job of making Quid feel more comfortable than he was. They brought in a bunch of rookies so that he doesn't have any pressure. Like Quid, so many eyes were on him. He replaced Bjergsen. He's playing with double lift. Like the amount of pressure that he had last split compared to this split, it makes so much more sense that he was able to say, "Hey, it clicked with me. I can play better on stage now because I figured out the mental part." As opposed to last split, where it was so stressful and he was the only Korean on that team and the team wasn't doing well. Like it can get really bad, even if the player is really good. And everyone said that he was good because they saw him play in scrims, but he just couldn't bring that onto stage. And environment is really important. People don't talk about this aspect of sport at all. Of the sport, yeah. I was gonna say in sports we talk about it a lot, but in like the sport here, Yeah. What are these rumors about Thanatos replacing Fudge? Bob, it makes sense that they want to bring a Korean to play with Reaper and what's his name? Berserker. It makes sense that they're not bringing in like a licorice. Normally, I'd be like, why are you importing? We have licorice, but I would much rather prefer have a second Korean with Berserker because who knows? We might see Berserker from last year or from 2022's summer because he's more comfortable. He has more people he can talk to. Like, let's say he has ideas about the game. He might be the one like teaching Thanatos what to do during like what he needs during a fight because he's able to articulate it quickly and efficiently during a team fight rather than having to like maybe say words and not understand. For example, even though he speaks very very good English, many times Jan has said, "Oh, when we were playing, if you watch like their VOD breakdowns, you know you were yelling in Korean, and I had to translate for APA because you got so hyped and you were just speaking Korean because that's what you normally speak in." And he was like, "No, I wasn't." He was like, "Go watch the VOD. Like you straight up were talking in Korean, and I had to translate for you." Um, Prince looked best with Winsome, then Ayla, then Vulcan. Prince is another thing that I wish I could have gotten to talk with someone who like was involved in that 2020 was it 3? Yeah, 2023 FlyQuest roster. I think a big culprit of what happened is culture and environment. You didn't support them with enough. You had it was his first time, right? Two very young players, first time coming to North America with a coach who's more experienced, but again hasn't had much success in North America. You didn't provide enough structure and environment to make them feel at home, to take away pressure from them, especially when they started off like 7-0 or something. I think what happened, especially to Vikla in summer, and not just Prince, was environment. And I was gonna make a whole video on that, but I never was able to talk to someone about it, which sucks. But yeah, it's good that you brought those up. I kind of forgot about them. Literally, environment changing ruined his career. Yeah, I it was so um, criminal that Berserker won MVP over Prince, who when he had to play with two different supports and like there was so many different like moving pieces, whereas Berserker had Sven playing with him, who was perfect for the meta. Like they were playing so well together, and he was Prince meant so much more to that team, at least because Fudge was playing well that split as well. And it really was the Prince show. It really was the Prince show. So I don't know. I felt like that was criminal in my mind. Not that Vulcan is individually worse than Winsome. I agree. I think for Vulcan, he was played best. His best play was when he played with people with really loud voices, like Niski, like Perks, and like Inspired. You have very loud voices who know exactly what they want, and they're going to call for it, and you're going to have to engage. You're going to have to do what they're telling you to do. And he played very, very well. And I think when he was in a position of leadership, I don't know what happened with Spica. Like, is Spica not a shot caller? It seems like he's not. Impact, even though he has a lot of ideas, seems like it's hard for him to shot call. So yeah, it seems like Vulcan needs someone to like give direction to the game because it seems like he's not that type of person. Don't get why GMs don't get it. Not like FIFA rosters for League. Yeah, we're getting better GMs, but just like it took a very long time for us to get rid of the bad coaches and bring in better coaches, it's going to take a while for us to get rid of the bad GMs and get better GMs because they're at a higher position, and which means they're closer to the owners or closer to leadership or management, and it's harder to get those people out of their positions and get actual good GMs. Um, and sometimes you gamble. Like sometimes it's like, hey, we think we can play together. We did the interviews, we did our due diligence, and it just didn't work. And maybe that's what happened with Cloud9. They scrimmed with this team and they tried to see what could happen. And at the end of the day, it seemed like they were playing very well together. In the first couple weeks, everyone was saying Cloud9 is like the best team that North America has ever seen. And then it kind of went haywire from there. But maybe during that off season and those first 2 weeks, everything looked great. And it's kind of hard to tell how the team will react when problems start occurring and you start getting exposed and the other teams start getting better around you until that happens. It's kind of hard to play that mental game of like, what happens when we have a problem? How are we going to react? And how are we going to fix that solution or find a solution and fix it? Um, is Fudge out of C9 already? It's not officially announced, Dome. Maybe he helps out, but I think that would be a waste. Yeah, I don't know that Fudge can find a spot. I mean, who's he gonna replace, right? Maybe I don't think Shopify does any change. I don't have any inside information, so I'm not like, um, yeah, I have zero inside information, so I'm not leaking anything. I don't know that Shopify is gonna change. I don't think IMT's. I don't know what IMT is doing. Maybe he goes to IMT. Who knows? I don't think they want to get rid of Rich. But they did get rid of their coach, so maybe the new coach is like, hey, I don't want Rich anymore. Yeah, I don't know. NRG might, yeah, Numer. NRG might pick him up. Seems like Dokla isn't playing well. Let's see. Maybe the reason they didn't keep Mithy is because they conflict in how he and Reaper see the game. Two leaders in one room. But it seemed like Mithy isn't a leader, so I don't know Numer. But Mithy has been a strategic coach before, so I don't know exactly. That's exactly how I feel. Yeah, maybe Reaper wanted full control, or maybe they just didn't have enough money in the budget. Like they already spent their budget. Like we're halfway through the year. If you think about it, we're in April. And I guess it's not halfway, but off season begins in like November of last year. So we're like 6 months in, and they already have their budget allocated, and they need to do what they needed to do. They definitely should add a strategic coach. C9 needs it. I agree. I think it's a budget, which is honestly a big problem. Like C9 need to invest, but they can't, won't. Yeah, until money starts coming in, who knows? Maybe Riot, with the way they're doing their new like partner program, new sorry, their the money, yeah, the split. Yeah, I forgot what it's called. Maybe then they'll have more money to be able to do stuff like that. Maybe sponsors come back. Like Cloud9 is clearly paying more attention to the content that they're making. Hopefully, they get more viewers and are able to draw in more fans. Maybe they listen to a stream I did a couple days ago about like different opportunities and collabs, and why I think content creation in League of Legends is dying is because of a lot of things that I think a team like Cloud9 could be doing. And I think that makes you bigger, and then more people watch your games because more people care, and then when more people care, sponsors care will pay more. That's kind of how that works. If you watch Reckless interview, literally Fnatic GMs are so dog shit. I didn't watch that interview. It was like an hour plus. I have it open. I just haven't watched it yet. Reckless went on about environment and how it matters to him. He's definitely not alone. I mean, from what I've heard, Reckless is the reason for environments being really, really bad. So who knows? I'm surprised Fly last year was so bad environment with Papa Smithy, but hopefully he learned a lot from that time. I don't know that it's the environment. That's my guess from when you see a player who played so well, like Prince, and then plays so poorly one split later. I think it says a lot about environment rather than the player himself, especially since Prince in LCK played well as well. Played well. Um, so clearly, it's not a skill level. That's just my personal take. But I might be wrong. NRG might change, yeah. Reckless also said he got diagnosed with autism, which plays a big role in environment issues, like he said. I didn't hear about that. I kind of guessed that because a tweet I saw where it was like, oh, Reckless made fun of someone for being, or Reckless fans making fun of someone being autistic probably feel really bad right now. So I assumed that he came out as autistic, or he found out. Dokla also lost his positional coach. Did he really lose Soaz? Is Soaz not on? Wait, let's go to Twitter. If he did, that's huge. Like you can see post like Dokla with and without Soaz is such a big difference. Soaz, his name is Paul, right? Paul something? Paul Boyer? Yeah. Soaz, NRG positional coach. I mean, it seems like he's still there. I don't. Yeah, I don't know if he's still on the team. He doesn't really tweet much, so I don't know. Oh, I can check the global database, can I? Soaz. But they don't have stuff for coaches, do they? Yeah, he's still on. He's still on. Seems like he's still there, as far as I can tell. It's high functioning autism slash Asperger's. Oh, interesting. The interview goes into exactly that. He acknowledges the issue, but explains why he caused the issues. There's a TLDR in the Reddit comments if you don't watch the whole thing. I will. I think I will. I don't think he was ever really better than Fudge. Yeah, I don't think Dokla was ever better than Fudge either. His neuroticism for environment caused friction with his team, which is understandable. But he said how so much more comfortable now at T1 because they treat him very well and try to cater to everything he needs. Although even better for Fudge. Like, yeah, I mean, Fudge with Soaz on his team might be really, really cool. I think that would be pretty impressive. It's kind of sad not to see NRG had success because they had so many positional coaches, and no other team be able to like, we're gonna take a really budget roster and then invest in our infrastructure, invest in our coaching staff. Like Shopify had money to throw around. They paid a bunch of money for players, but they didn't really get many coaches. You just have Revan. Cloud9 decided to go with a super team roster, didn't bring in much coaches. Team Liquid has a bunch of coaches. FlyQuest went the coach way, and you can see those were the two teams that went to finals. So um, I do think Mithy, like it would be really cool to bring in Mithy to Shopify. I would love Mithy Shopify. It seems like he could add a lot of direction, but I don't know how that would like mesh with Revan. I don't know. He also said the reason he succeeded on Fnatic for so long and lost was because his Asperger's made him need things in a really specific way and environment and not good with change. Ah, I see. Okay, that makes sense. So moving to G2 and complete changing environment was not great for someone like him, and he didn't realize that before. I mean, yeah, ever since he moved to that team, his career kind of died. I'm a Revan stan, to be honest. How come, don't? I mean, I am too. I think he's really smart about the game. You can see that he provides direction to teams. Sad he left C9. I'm happy he joined Shopify. I'm a Shopify fan. Where could Mithy go? Because Mithy is really smart about the game, and it seems like Dignitas would be a really good place for him to go because it seems like they need direction. Right? They have these young rookies that are very impressionable, whether they're rookies by the Riot standards or not. They're rookies for all intents and purposes. It would be very, very beneficial for them to go and play with someone who has so much experience or play for someone who has so much experience and so much ideas about the game that can really teach them very basics that seems like they miss out. Because a lot of times their early games are fine. A lot of times, even when they played against Team Liquid, they had that comp where if you don't make mistakes, you win that game. And it seems like they don't understand when it's their turn to do things and when it's not. And you saw how the Kaisa was like became Thanos basically, and there was nothing that Team Liquid could do unless Dignitas made these mistakes. So I do think it would be cool. Again, they don't have a lot of Korean staff around them. They have Toby, who's a manager who's Korean, so maybe he helps there. But with the two Koreans, I would love to see Dignitas without Koreans. It would be really cool if they brought in, I don't know, who's a mid laner that's available right now. I mean, a Blaze Olive decided to come back, so maybe that you bring in a Blaze, or you just bring in Young, and you bring in like Fudge or Licorice, and just have a North American roster with Mithy. I think that would be really, really cool for that team. You have some rookies with leadership, both on the side of the coaching staff with Mithy, not player leadership, but more like strategic leadership. And then you have like a solid rock in Licorice, who you know is going to do what he needs to do well, or even Fudge. I think both work. Bring me in. I play mid lane. Put me in, Coach Numer. You're gonna have to talk to Toby, or whoever the GM of Dignitas is now. I feel bad for people like Prince or Reckless because their ceiling with proper environment is pretty probably very high. They're also limited in that way. I just really liked his honesty in interviews I've seen from him. His coaching stints were honestly really good for the teams he had. Yeah, I mean, Mithy has been very open. I mean, I only interviewed him once again. I spent like 15 minutes talking to him, but from talking to him, it seemed like he understood the situation he was in. He understood that his head is on the chopping block. He even said it himself. He was very honest about the reason they don't have more coaching staff is because of budget issues, and that he wants help. It's not like he said, "Hey, I don't want help. I'm the only person." He wants more help, and he's trying his best. The players are trying their best, and at the end of the day, it's the nature of sports. And he just hopes that you guys keep cheering. And I asked him, like, "Were you nervous? You guys had like a 4-game losing streak," and he was like, "Hell yeah." He's like, "I'm human too. I was worried. I was like, what's going on? We went 3-0, and then we went 0-4. Like that's not what you expect from the super team." Oh, you meant Revan. Oh. That too. Revan, even in TSM Legends, was always like, even interview that I did with him, he's like, I take blame for this because I realized that was my fault. And clearly a big fault that he has in is whenever they don't get their visa, which I don't know why they're the only team that always has visa problems. You should really be able to figure that out. That's probably more a management issue than coaching issue. Uh, he doesn't know what to do with the player, and he tried to fix it by last year. He tried to give Ruby his shot, um, but then by like just taking out Insanity immediately and putting in Ruby. This year he was like, okay, I'm going to split it a little bit. I'm going to like slowly and gradually bring in B-Boy so we don't have the same mistake. And then realized, okay, this was a different situation. I should have brought in B-Boy to begin with. And you can see that game against IMT, the third game of the spring split. They had no direction. And he even said like, oh, we were so directionless. Then later on, as B-Boy started to incorporate into the team, they played better. together. So I do think he's learning from his mistakes. He's willing to admit his mistakes, which I really appreciate. He doesn't care what people think about him, which is really good. And overall, he's very smart. He provides structure and direction. He provides direction to a team, which is very difficult to do, in my opinion. It's like we've had so many coaches, and not that many coaches have been able to do it. So I'm very excited for him next split. I'm acquaintances with XU, but I think my Emerald Peak limits me from competing, unfortunately. Aw, I'm sorry, Numair. Well, maybe you can boot camp. Just do a little boot camp, even if it's at your home. Get maybe a coach or something, and you can hit Challenger. If you hit Emerald, you can hit Challenger. That's my theory. Though what's funny, before the split, people were saying nepotism. I was the one that said that. I was the one that started it all. People didn't even know that he played with B-Boy. Yeah, me too. Interested how summer goes. Hyped for that. I didn't call it nepotism. I defended it as not being nepotism, but I also said it could be nepotism. So if you look at the subreddit thread that came up about, oh, this is just nepotism, it started because I said, oh, he played with Bevoy before on multiple teams. And then they were like, oh my God, nepotism. And I was like, whoa, wait, wait, it might not be nepotism. He might just know him and he knows he's a good player. So we have to wait and see. And then 2 months go by and Shopify say absolutely nothing. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make a video about this. And I said, yeah, if he turns out to be a good player, then clearly Revan knew something that we didn't know. But if he turns out to be just like mediocre, then you have to wonder, like, is this really nepotism? And I think I probably should make an apology video being like, or just tweet it out, like, I was wrong. Bvoy was not a it wasn't nepotism. There was a lot of merit behind it. I hate solo queue because I don't really play to push my leads. I do well when playing when people play the way I want to, but that's impossible at NA solo queue. Uh, yeah. If he would have been bad, if he would have had a bad split, the flame would be insane. Yeah, I probably would have made another video saying like, "Hey, it was nepotism," and like Turtle, the first two games looked amazing, and then you brought in this AD carry who looked like a potato. That's just not cool. But Bvoy was the first team All Pro AD carry, so I can't say anything. He shut me up real good. Like people playing around each other, yeah, it's solo queue. It's you just have to play to push your leads, which clearly isn't your preferred play style. Like how you can play mages when all the junglers play assassins or are an autofilled. Yeah, it's like the dichotomy. You either have an autofilled jungle or you have a 1 million mastery point Kha'Zix jungler that you're playing against. And it's like, okay, I either die or I auto win the game because the jungler just sucks. Oh, you're talking about on your team? Yeah, you don't have anyone that can like is playing Vi. You have all these like Teemo jungle or yeah. I haven't played solo queue in a while. Although I have to check when the split ends because I try to make it to plat every split and then not play, but I haven't played in a long time. I think I made it to gold if I'm not mistaken, and then just like gave up playing solo queue. I just try to get the skins. That's all. I prefer playing ARAMs, but I haven't played in a while. When does the split end? Uh, January 10th. Okay, well that already happened. No, when's the next one? We're in split 2. Oh, May 2024. Okay. So May is when the next one. So we still have a month to hit gold or whatever. Plat. I cheesed to Emerald one tricking Senna. Senna mid? You must have been playing bot then, because I know how to play her. But then when back to plat, hell after she got oh yeah, okay, Senna bot. Thanks, Ryan Freak. What would you say if you about C9 changing Blabber at least for a while? Ooh, Dome. Changing Blabber. I don't think that's ever going to happen. He's your franchise player. Even if C9 finishes last, you don't change him. I think you change Berserker, you change Jojo Pune before you change Blabber. He is the core of that team. He's the best jungler, North American jungler. Even if Inspired is better right now, or River had some time where he's better, I don't think you change Blabber because you don't want to risk him leaving to another team, right? You want him to always be on C9. I do think it would be beneficial to have a like I don't know, maybe Svenskeren or something be a positional coach. I would love to have to give Blabber as positional coach, especially someone who's like very, very experienced, right? As Svenskeren. I think Svenskeren is probably the only North American. Oh, I guess it's not North American. Okay, yeah. He's one of the very few junglers that could do positional coaching for someone like Blabber, right? He's made it to semifinals of Worlds. He's won North America a bunch of times, 3 times if I'm mistaken. Um, Maybe Blabber has some cooler accomplishments, but I think Bot needs it more. I think Bot needs synergy. I can see them needing a positional coach. Honestly, give everyone a positional coach. I think that's really cool. The problem is you need someone Korean because you have a Korean AD carry, and I think you need a Korean who I mean, maybe you get like Arrow would be really cool, but Arrow's on FlyQuest. I don't know who you would get as a positional coach. Maybe Mata if you would leave. I think he's on Genji right now, but sadly that won't happen for a while. Yeah, I think once the money starts coming back in, it seems like Saudi Arabia is going to pump a lot of money into North American League of Legends. So Cloud9 get a big influx of gold. I'm talking about as if it's League of Legends. Influx of money, and they can hire more positional coaches or whatnot. That would be really cool. I think they're hiring more social media people. I saw that they're hiring like 3 different interns, a social media manager, a team like a community manager, and like a social media person to post. I mean, I want money for the league, but honestly, not from Saudi Arabia. Yeah, I mean, we're beggars. Can we really be choosers? I think that's probably the argument they're gonna go with. It's like, hey, we're not gonna say no to money, right? Money is money. Especially when we're bleeding money. We don't have much choice. No, money has ethics. Ethics are dead when it comes to money, in my opinion. I think sometimes you have to. I agree. You have to be. Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to say that when you're not the one that is looking at your business crumbling and losing money split after split after split. It's very, very difficult. I said no money has ethics. Oh yeah, no money has ethics. Oh, I thought you were saying no money has ethics. You're right. No money has ethics. I agree with that. Not yeah, it's very difficult when you're especially like you have employees that you owe them to like pay for their salaries and whatnot, like their livelihoods. A lot of people have left their country to come play for your team. has left Rainover could have went back to Korea. You have Impact, who's I guess at this point Impact and Core um, are staples in North America, but Core JJ left Korea to join Team Liquid. And the idea of Team Liquid being like, hey, we could pay you, but we chose not to because ethics question mark is yeah, it just it depends. It also depends on how you see it. Yeah, that's fair. Cena said they're doing well now. I don't think they said they're doing well. I think they just stemmed the bleeding. They're not bleeding anymore. At least no loss. Yes, I think that's what happened to them. They're not losing money. I think last split they were able to be net positive. I don't think it's enough to like justify running a whole business. If you're making like $1,000 a month, it's probably not worth having a business. But considering all the effort and whatnot that you have to do, and how easily it can go into negative. But I think slowly they should be able to start getting back up. I really hope they increase their social media like presence so that they can get better sponsors. Because at this rate, you're not going to get more sponsors by winning, right? You won last split, or 2 splits ago. You won the split before that. If you need sponsors at this point, you need to go the content creation route. And Jack did admit this. He said in the owner's press conference, what was it in August last year that we are competitors, we're not content creators, and we're excited to see what Disguise has to teach us because we're not content creators, and there's a lot we need to learn about that. And hopefully they take content creation more seriously because look, if you have an optic level of YouTube channel and fan base, your sponsors don't care that it's esports. They care that there's so many people watching you. That's what they care about. Yeah, they also have to cultivate a decent fan base. Not sure how many people buy merch. Trevor, half the team is gone. Yeah, I don't know about their merch sales and whatnot, but they did have that One Piece collaboration. and I'm really sad they didn't do more with it. They could have, like, given shirts to a bunch of One Piece, like, creators who have, like, straight up over a million, um, subscribers on YouTube, like, do One Piece is huge on YouTube. I think it would have made a lot of sense for them to collab with them, give them some merch just to say, "Hey, if you like One Piece, look, we have these really cool Cloud9 merch." Even if it's not a sponsorship, if it's just like, "Hey, we're just gonna send you this. Could you just please talk about it?" And maybe 1 in 10 hit, but that 1 in 10 that you did got you 1,000, 100,000 more views. And if you're like 100 extra sales or 1,000 extra sales or maybe 100 new fans, like it's definitely worth it. I actually just want to see certain channels. Yeah, this guy has like 600,000, 300,000, 500,000, 400,000. Yeah, there's definitely more than a million, like, subscribers in terms of like the online. Yeah, Arthur, he has like 300K subscribers, 300,000 subscribers. It's very, very, there's a huge market for One Piece online, and yeah, I hope they next time they do more for that kind of stuff. Also, they definitely need more community cultivation. Need C9 OnlyFans? Please no. Oh God. Please no. I don't think anyone would sponsor them if they got an OnlyFans like that. Their sponsorships would die, and I don't know that the people that watch Cloud9 are the type of people that would want a C9 OnlyFan. Maybe you would like that, Dome. I don't know. I'm just saying. You did bring up the idea. I don't know that a lot of people would pay money for that. Yeah, probably. I would, like I said, I would definitely love to see their content creation just be a little more serious, whether it's on TikTok, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Twitter. Just put a little bit more effort. It's cheaper than hiring a new player. Um, so yeah, I really hope that Cloud9 Law. I mean, they're at 43,000 subscribers, which is pretty good, um, considering, the 4 years. When you consider it's been up for 4 years, I don't know, but their videos recently have all hit above 10K, so hopefully they continue growing. I think they need to put more effort into this stuff. They should shorts, like, yeah, they need a lot more shorts. Considering how many videos they split, they have so much more time to actually make, like, shorts from that stuff. They just need someone hired. Like, they have shorts that do well, they just don't have enough. Um, yeah, well, I mean, most of their shorts do well, so hopefully they take it a bit more serious. They understand why is Saudi worse than anyone else is virtue signaling and makes me ick. Why is Saudi worse than anyone else? That doesn't. What kind of a okay? I mean, just like the multiple human rights articles. I don't want to turn this into a whole Saudi thing, but no matter the thing is, it's like just because one person does something bad doesn't mean that you can't then say, "Hey, person A is doing something bad, person B is doing something bad, person C is doing something bad. I don't want to deal with person C rather than person A or B." At the end of the day, each you need to make each decision yourself, right? And I'm not saying go one way or the other, um, because at certain points, some people might have different reasons, right? Maybe you don't like what Saudi is doing, but you don't like what someone else is doing more, and so you might give your business to Saudi Arabia, but not to someone else. I think that comes down to your personal, like, moral compass, and I think it needs to be there, right? If you're going to take money from anyone who may have done something that you don't agree with, you need to figure out where that line is. And then once you have that line, it needs to be consistent and it shouldn't be swayed by money. Because if you're swayed by money, then it's not, you don't have a moral compass. And I think that speaks more about the team, the person himself, rather than the the money you're taking it from. Yeah. Figure out where that line is, and then once you have that line and you're comfortable and you think I don't think it can't change, right? Because as you mature, you might think, "Oh, wait, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought, or maybe this is worse than I thought," and then you change that line. But at the end of the day, you need to decide where that line is, and the reasoning has to not be money. Because if money is your ethics, you will do anything. You will do drugs, right? Well, you will ruin people's lives over getting more money because it doesn't matter to you. Money matters to you, and that's a very obvious line that people will say, "Hey, that's messed up." Like you're trafficking people because it makes you money. You're actively hurting people. You just find that line, and when you find that line, just make sure that the decision is not money based on money. It is based on your actual morals, and what you think is acceptable and not acceptable in terms of business making. Because sometimes you need to be ruthless in making business decisions, and it can't compromise your morals. That's all I'll say on that topic. And if Team Liquid decides that, hey, it's within what we consider acceptable for us to deal in business, then that's their call. But if they're virtue signaling, where like what you're saying, Numair, where people are like, "Oh, I would never do deals with this person or that person because they're so bad," and then once the money comes to you rather than someone else, you're like, "Oh, well, they're not that bad." That's a problem in my opinion. But having a consistent like viewpoint and saying, "Hey, these are my boundaries. This is my moral compass, and this is why I think it's okay for me to do this, or this is why I think it's not okay," and you're just consistent with that. I think that's fine. Um, I don't know how we got into Saudi to begin with. I'm not sure they would do this, but they could try to tap into Korean and Chinese fan bases. I don't know that that is beneficial when you're trying to get sponsors for North America. I think it might be great for like your YouTube algorithm. But at the end of the day, like when you're going to sponsors, you're like, hey, look, the majority of my viewers, 43% of them are from North America. These are the people we're selling to you because these are the your budget, even companies that exist in different countries, they have separate budgets. And you're going to the North American office and you're asking them for money from North America. I guess the best argument for this is that they don't accept money from other foreign governments directly. I mean, that's one argument. I don't know that. I mean, yeah, but if they start taking money from other governments, but say Saudi is especially bad, then I don't understand. Yeah, I don't know. Whether you're accepting it directly or not doesn't make a difference. If you're doing it through a proxy, you're still getting the money from them. So you need to like there's an argument of people is like, oh well, if they're giving us money, they're not using it for something else that could be bad, right? I mean, that's an argument to take the money directly from them. So I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what Team Liquid is thinking, to be honest, or any other LCS teams. I don't know what they're thinking of. Um, I did see Team Liquid did some sort of like um, not oxymoron. What is it? Like hypocritical stuff previously. Not their LCS team, but they have in the past. So who knows? Yeah, you got to focus on your main fan base first. Yeah, Dome. The problem with having fans in other regions, which I think there's a big like Brazilian fan base, for example, is that it's very difficult to monetize them. And right now you need money, right? I guess Cloud9 has stemmed the bleeding. That's a problem with growing faster than you actually are. What I mean by that is you Riot sort of forced everybody to invest $10 million into their team, but they weren't at that size. And so now you have a money expenditure that is above where you're at. So you have to take a loan, you have to get investors. And all of a sudden, now you have to make way more money because you have all of that responsibility of that investment and growing that investment. Whereas if you just grew naturally and slowly and through developing a fan base, you could slowly increase your spending, slowly improve with it, and you could even reinvest all that money and not worry about how much money you're making because you can reinvest all that money back into your company and into the things that are actually succeeding currently and you know are working rather than having to make these big gambles and big moves because you're growing too slowly. Um, I think that's unfortunate that they were in that position and Cloud9 wanted to stay in League of Legends, and I respect that. They had to take that risk, and obviously the risk didn't pay off, and they've been losing money, and now they stem the bleeding, and hopefully they can start making more money. And I think they will put a lot more focus on content creation, whether their streamers are doing more stuff to integrate to making people fans of Cloud9 because you need that. I just thought that the drama was a bit overblown, but it's not that big of a deal. I think the reason it's overblown is because we're kids here. A lot of the people that are running League of Legends are young, naive, stupid, and just want money. and will virtue signal. There was a lot of virtue signaling that happened in North America, not in North America, in Western League of Legends, and then you see that these people are hypocrites. You see them being hypocritical, and it's hard to people need to call that stuff out. People need to call it out because you don't want to be associated with someone like that because if they'll do that for money, they'll just throw you under the bus for money, right? They'll throw you under the bus for whatever it is. They're not honest, genuine people. And we don't have many people who are care more about who they are as a person rather than the money they make through the scene. There are a lot of people that have entered the industry and left because they made a quick buck back when we had a lot of money, when franchising came in and screwed people over and left and will never come back because no one likes them because they're bad people. And I think that's why it was blown out of proportion because it was like, okay, you guys have all said so many things about whether this community, that community, these people, that people, and now you're going against everything that you said. Why do you expect us to believe anything you say? So it could have been maybe it was a bit overblown. I didn't feel that way. I felt like the discussion early industry pains. Yeah, I think it's good to improve over time. Hopefully, I think if you don't have these talks and discussions and you don't bring this stuff up, it doesn't improve. I think because we're bringing this up, because people, I mean, I wasn't the one that brought it up, but because people are bringing this up and people are making it into an issue, people then have to say, okay, maybe it's not that simple. Maybe I can't just do whatever I want. Maybe I can't get away with everything. Maybe there are people who are actually paying attention to the stuff. Maybe I didn't think about it that way. Maybe I was just like, whatever, chasing the money. I didn't realize I was doing that. So I do think you need to bring it up. I don't know if it was overblown or not. I don't remember, to be honest. Um, but yeah, it seems like it's going to wash away and no one's going to care about it. And also on YouTube, it's really easy to talk about the stuff and make a lot of money because people want to hear about it. So I can see why people might bring it up as well, or overblow it because. And the other thing is like maybe it's not overblown in their perspective of someone bringing it up because to them it's completely unacceptable. For example, and if it is, then you know where their moral compass is, you know where their line is, and they don't agree with the opposition. And when the opposition says we agree with you, but then do the opposite, that's not cool. Copy pasta says, I wouldn't say Saudi is actually worse than, say, the United States from a human rights standpoint, but Saudi is spending here directly from the state. So that alone is kind of sketchy to some. Maybe. Yeah. I personally don't care much, but I see why people might be concerned about that. Yeah, I can see that. Like there are people who didn't want to take money from the military when they wanted to sponsor. So I can see that. I like I said, whatever the company does, I just hope that they're consistent and they're not doing it because of money. They're It's good for them to make money. I want these businesses to make money because I get to watch League of Legends and talk about it with you guys. But at the same time, they need to figure it out themselves where their moral compass is and follow that. Because if you truly believe in something, even if you're wrong, at least you had your reasoning was there, which I think matters. Like when a government is pouring money into something, it's not for shit and giggle. Yeah, um, yeah, they have a reason. And you can think like, how much do I care about the reason, right? At the end of the day, it's money. Money is money. So it's pretty complicated, honestly. It's not as black and white as people try to make it, which is a lot of issues. A lot of issues, social issues, or that Twitter will make it seem like it's completely black and white. And if you disagree with me, you're not worth being a human being. Like that's not how it works. There's good, there's bad, and most things are somewhere in between. They're trying to improve their reputation. No, yeah, I mean, the Saudi Arabia? Probably. They're I can see that being the case. But someone who needs his reputation, because you mentioned reputation, improved is Mithy, and that's part of the reason I decided to do this live stream is because Mithy is a really good player and a really good strategic coach. And I think it's really, really sad that we put him in positions where he's judged on his people coaching. True. I don't really think sports washing is particularly effective, though. All it's done is so far is draw critics. True. Yeah, I don't know. It could also, I mean, it could also not be sports washing. It could be what Japan did, where like after World War II, they decided to have certain industries sort of change their reputation, kind of like what you said, and then it became a economic purpose, right? It's a big reason for their economy. So it could be we have all these sports events and whatnot, and it actually brings a lot of money to us. I mean, it's definitely worked. Yeah, a bit. Yeah, and again, the next generation, maybe it doesn't. They don't care about today. They care about the next generation. Like, how many people remember the atrocities of Japan back in 1940? I'd say very few. Right? It's been almost 80 years. Not many people even remember that. Most people think like don't even remember what happened during World War II, and this was less than 100 years ago, right? Like our grandparents. I don't know about you guys, how old you guys are, but our grandparents were alive during that time, and a lot of them fought in that war, right? A lot of them like didn't make it back from that war. A lot of people died during that time, and a lot of people were civilians. A lot of people, yeah. Well, this isn't a history lesson, but Japan wasn't the kindest when it came to World War II and what they did, and a lot of countries weren't. And Japan has completely changed their opinion. People don't really remember or even know that something like that happened. And when I bring it up sometimes with like people who are a bit younger than me, they're like, or people even my age, they're like, wait, what did Japan do in World War II? Didn't they just get like Hiroshima? And they don't know that America for the Chinese people don't. I'd say a lot of Westerners, and Middle Easterns, and like I'd say the only people who really remember are like specific Asian, like China, and obviously that whole peninsula of like Indonesia, Philippines, and whatnot. Korea, obviously, but there anyone west of that, like India, West, um, going to Europe, going to Asia, they don't know. They really don't. Hot take was not particularly. Hey, I'm on YouTube. I don't know what I can say and what I can't say. I'm pretty new to this. So, hot take. When you put it that way, copy pasta, it's yes, I agree with that hot take. It was not particularly nice. Actually, I read a cool book about Pearl Harbor. Let me look up the name of the book, but it's like it came out during it was basically a research paper on what happened during that time and why we were surprised by what happened at Pearl Harbor, considering all the things that we had in place, considering the fact that we literally had all of their secret communications. We understood all of it. So how did we miss this? Because we had like the magic, right? Which where is this? I have it here somewhere. Oh, I'm looking in the wrong place. That's why. My books. Yeah, Pearl Harbor Warnings and Decisions by Roberta Wohlstetter that came out in 1962. So obviously not that far from when it happened, and it's a really good book that talks about just I mean, you could bring a bunch of coaching things into play as well. Where if you don't have good systems, even if you understand what you need to do and you don't do it properly, things can really collapse. And that's basically what happened during Pearl Harbor. It's that we had all the infrastructure we needed, we had all the intelligence that we needed, but because the people, the way people acted, the way management and leadership wanted to be very secretive, the way everyone assumed things were happening that weren't actually happening, that was a big problem. It was like, oh, I assumed he knew. I assumed he knew. I assumed you knew. How did you not know? Oh, well, I was told not to give my communications to you because I had to go through this other person. The other person didn't know that. And it's like all these like logistics that were happening and red tape and whatnot that we were caught, yeah, very surprised during Pearl Harbor. Oh, so you don't think so you don't think Pearl Harbor was fabricated? Uh, interesting take. Great segue back to C9 and their systems. Hey, I agree. I thought it was great. I was thinking of how to bring back C9 because this is a C9 stream. I guess I could change the title at this point because I did talk enough about Mithy. But yeah, I was thinking about sharks as well. Like if you go into a team and you don't have confidence that the team has your back, that when you take all the public facing pressure, which Mithy did, right? After the 4 game win streak, Mithy came on to my interview with me and did an interview where he basically said, like, I will answer any question you want, right? There's certain things I can't say, but I will answer any question you want. And I like before I did the interview, I talked with him and I was like, hey, if there's anything specific that I can't touch, he was like, no, just ask me whatever it is. I'll answer it. And then I said, "Look, these are the questions I wanna ask you." And I actually like, I do this with most players, not just because it's, like, specific touchy topic. I was like, "These are the questions I wanna ask. Is that cool?" He was like, "Yes." And then I didn't have time to ask all of them. He was like, "Hey, you wanted to talk about this as well, right?" I wanna talk about it too because it was about their coaching staff. He was like, "I wanna, like, go into more detail." I was like, "Hey, we don't really have time. It's fine." He was like, "No, no, let me just say something quick." And he spent, like, another 5 minutes talking about the coaching structure and, like, that's the part where he was like, "Hey, look, I wanted it's not that I didn't want more help. I do want more help. It's just we don't have the budget for it." So when you have someone that's taking all the blame, taking all the heat from the community and like being a public facing figure and saying, "Hey, we're working on it. Put the blame on me, not the players, because if they're not playing well, it's my fault." Then the team needs to be behind you. And when the team just like cuts you like that, I feel like he's earned enough trust to realize that it's not Mithy's problem. I understand that they wanted to bring another coach and maybe they couldn't afford having both, so that makes sense. But in terms of like him as a public persona, I think he's actually improved very much from like 2014 Toxic Mithy, right? From like Lemon Dog's days of Mithy, where he's he's improved drastically, and he's a much more mature person. And hopefully, I would love to see him work under someone like Sharks, someone like Grabs, maybe even go back to EU. I'd love to see him back in North America, but work under someone who's known for their structures, not C9 systems. Because I don't know much about them. I can't like speak about them, not because they're bad or good. And I think that will do a much better job at teaching you how to be a coach. The reason I like Shark so much is he was a professional tennis player, right? He understands this. Golden Glue understands this too because he used to be varsity football, right? And you had your coaches, and it was pretty big. I think it was Texas, which is huge for football. And I think those are the type of skills that he can learn, but he needs someone to teach. Like he needs to learn it. He can't just get it like that. He can't reinvent the wheel, make it up himself. He needs to see how it's done and actually learn that stuff. So I'm just gonna do a stream on why each org sucks at this point. Wait, this isn't copy pasta. This isn't about why C9 sucks. It's about why Mithy is good. But I can do that. I can do why each org sucks. I can't do Shopify because I don't know much about like their um org in general. I actually think Shopify's um premise is awesome. They're a marketing arm. It's so smart. You're not here to win. You're here to build a fan base because you want people when they want to make a website to use Shopify. You want them to know about Shopify because a lot of people didn't know about Shopify. I personally have introduced Shopify to at least 10 different people because I was talking about Shopify, the team. And they're like, "What's Shopify? I heard that before. Is that like a website or something?" I'm like, "No, no, the Shopify is this, this, and this. It's a service." So customer acquisition, I think it's really smart. You're focused, even the way they came in, even when you hear like their CEO TLO, how he talks about what their goal is. Their goal isn't to come in and like make a huge splash, like when Immortals came in and bought in Huni and Reignover and completely made a huge burst in the bubble of salaries and whatnot. They're here to learn. They understand it's going to take them time to learn, and that's why I say don't judge Shopify today. Judge them a year from now because that's when they'll have more time. That's when like they've made a lot of content. Obviously, it's not the best content that we've seen. TL has made better content, but Shopify has made more, and they're going to improve on that. They're going to, be better at doing things for fans. Their booth was pretty popular, from what I hear, because they were actually giving out straight up money. I didn't know that. That's awesome. But I can talk about each org. I should. I like that. I'll write that down. Hold up. Where I don't think they all suck, so I'm not gonna say they all suck. But I might talk about things that I like and things that I don't like. But yes, this is a C9. As this is a Mithy is awesome, and should be treated as a strategic coach, not as a player coach. Considering he himself said, "I'm a really good." He didn't say I'm a really good strategic coach. Everyone has said that about him, but he said I'm not great with people. That's why we brought in High. Um, because I'm here for that. Awesome. All right, maybe I should do that. C9 fans don't really care about him, just like Fudge, where the don't really care because him, just like Fudge, were the scapegoats. Yeah, scapegoating makes no sense to me. Should have gone for Sharks, probably cheaper, and Mithy might have been able to stay on the team. Ooh, I would have loved that. I would have loved Sharks on C9. I think he would have done a very, very good job with that team. Maybe not in one split. Maybe something that takes more time to develop, but I would have loved that. I'm not gonna lie, I keep hearing Mithy is a good coach, but clearly couldn't control the environment. 2023 seemed C9 like a mess too. Yes, I don't think he's good for environment. So I was disappointed with coach off season. Yeah, I think that's more like I said. I think if you judge Mithy as a complete coach, right? So someone who sets the environment, someone who's good with interpersonal relationships, someone who's good at teaching the game, he's not the best. He's not good. I agree with you, right? But when you consider his strengths, you're bringing Mithy for strategic resources, right? Like being a strategic mind, and you brought in High to be that sort of manager that controls the environment. So I think if anything, it should be more of an on because of High rather than Mithy. If you're going to scapegoat anyone, I think you should scapegoat High because he was brought in to be the people person, and he didn't people person this team. I'm pretty much always disappointed by coach off season. I don't know. I was happy with Sharks being on not Sharks, the FlyQuest coaching. I thought they did a good. They brought in Arrow. They had Robert already. They brought in Nuke Duck, who's really smart about the game. He can do a lot of. He can teach the rookies. They brought in Demonte for the people person, and for the environment. So I think FlyQuest did a good job with their coaching staff. Team Liquid, I was really happy they brought in Spawn. I thought he was the best coach in Academy. He proved it, right? Whether it's the players that were brought up and how they talk about him, whether it's in Academy, whether it's other coaches that talk about him. So maybe High wasn't the right move as this role. I agree, Numer. I think High wasn't the best role. Even then, I don't think it was a High problem. I think mainly it was just a budget issue because I think if they had the option, they would have brought someone else full time. But they had to bring in High, and maybe he wasn't their first choice. So who knows? Maybe constructing the super team was just too expensive, but it was also like if you have the opportunity to build the best team that North America may have ever seen, don't you take it? They also tried to bring in Wonder instead of Fudge. So I don't know. I think they focused a little too much on the players, and not because they needed to win now. Um, but yeah, we can't have that in league. Doesn't work. The first split, you're done. Yeah, I hate that. Don't like. I would much love. I love the idea of 2-year projects. Right. I love that with NRG. I love that with IMT. That's the reason I was actually cheering for IMT when they came in. Was with Sharks was because they had a 2-year project. When I talked to FlyQuest, they said this is a 2-year project. They brought in 2 rookies and they made it to finals. They were like, even if we don't win or make it to any international events, we're still committed to these players because it's a 2-year project, right? So I'm a fan of 2-year projects because it gives the fans an opportunity to like go from one year to the next year and see the development of the players that they have grown to like. If you're going to spend an entire year telling me why I should be a tactical fan, I should be an Ole fan, I should be an Armeo fan, why these people are attractive to as players, not as like physically attractive, right? And then you get rid of them next year and start all over. I'm never going to grow an attachment to that team. I might grow an attention to that player. I'm just going to follow him to a different team, but that's not what you want. What you want is to spend that time and then for the payoff to come the next year where they actually do well, where they push hard. And if they fail, you're like, hey, this was a failure. We're going to start rebuilding. Um, yeah, I personally prefer that. One year just seems like you have you're directionless, kind of like Cloud9 in their games. Um, the second part was tongue in cheek, but some sort of content But some sort of content on each org would be cool. I guess most of CS viewers don't actually know anything about them beyond the players and maybe the head coach. Sure, I can talk about their structures. I know a lot about most of the teams. I don't know much about. I mean, I think I probably know more about every team than regular fans who only really watch the games or the highlights of the games. Mostly the org's fault, of course. It doesn't really make sense having Vega V2 and Mithy as a team because one is remote, the other isn't people coach. It doesn't seem like a recipe for success. I agree, Nomer. And like I said, sometimes it's a gamble. It's like, hey, we think the players are good enough that they might not need that, right? They're all willing, like we talked to them, they're all willing to compromise. They're all willing to like play this style or that style. And they're all really smart about the game. And like through our conversations, we think it's actually like it's a risk, but we're going to go for it because we want to go big because this year is going to be in like Europe and next year is supposed to be in America. And so we're going to have a lot of Western eyeballs. A lot of the sponsors are going to be looking at us. We think it's a really good time. We just figured out how to be stable as an organization. So maybe last year wasn't the time to go big, but this year is the time to go big. And through their talks, through whoever hired them, didn't see any problems, and it was going well. Like I said, the first 2 weeks it was going well, and then as they say, when the shit hit the fan, there was no one to clean up. And there are many former players who are great people coaches. I'd say Golden Glue. Golden Glue is someone who I think is a. Oh, I skipped a bunch of things, didn't I? It doesn't. Spawn plus Rainover is probably the best coach example in two combination. Yes, yes. I only skipped uh, one comment from Numer. There aren't that many former pros who are great people coaches, huh? It doesn't seem like it. Again, like what I said earlier, almost like an hour and a half ago now, is a lot of these players are they. You start playing League of Legends when you're like professionally, like 16, 17, right? You never had the opportunity to play under a coach. You never who was a people coach. You never had the opportunity to develop as a coach yourself. You didn't even go to college. Most of these players didn't go to college, right? And so they don't have life experience. And so how can they be good people coaches when one, unless you're naturally charismatic and a good people person, like for example Demonte, you're just not going to be that. And if you're playing League of Legends 18 hours a day, you're probably not going to be a good people person, like just by the virtue of your job. So yeah, I don't think there are many former players. I don't know anyone. Like Nukeduck isn't it? Rainover isn't it? I don't know much about Reaper's interpersonal relation. I heard he's like maybe not the best at being a people person, but he can be very strict, and that can be like he's good for some personalities and not all. But Golden Glue, I think, is a good example. But is the best team if you don't have the best coaching staff? Wait, what did I miss? Maybe how many? Oh, to Numera's comment, but is the best team if you don't have the best coaching staff? I think a really good coaching staff can take a rookie team and not and be like the best rookie coaching staff, but haven't had enough time to become the best players. So yeah, I think so. TL just stumbled upon it by accident. The two younger players rookie thing. No, no, man. They didn't. Oh, yes, their players, yes. They actually tried to bring in other players. So APA wasn't supposed to be on that team. That's why it took so long for them to renew. I think Yon could have been gone as well if they did bring in Berserker and Jojo Pune. So in terms of like, did it happen by accident? Sure, a little bit, but they did have them on their academy and bring them up, so it wasn't completely accident. But bringing up Spawn was no accident. They brought him in for 4 years, 3 years, I guess. He won multiple titles. He proved himself. He talked about it as well. They're like, look, once I reach these certain things and I feel like I'm good enough in all these things, I think I'm ready to be a head coach. He became ready to become a head coach. He deserved it. I think he was a very good head coach. And yeah, I'm happy to see him succeed. I just have Orlando Magic from the NBA as a good example of product. Yes, I agree. Um, and I don't know. We justified Fudge, but watching Blabber plus Switch get 3 plus year and still have synergy in top 2v2 was hard to watch. Yeah, it was hard to watch. I think there was one time where they had good synergy, which was 2022 summer playoffs, not even the spring split, but the playoffs. It seemed like they were on page. And it seems like Blabber is really good at playing with weak side top laners, which is what he's done his entire career, right? He's never really had a summit, and when he did have summit, didn't go really well. He never had like a Huni or someone like that. So yeah, I guess I don't know. Impact was probably the best person that he had. He didn't really play with Impact, did he? I mean, I guess he played with him. No, he didn't. He didn't play with him. Yeah, because when he went on 2018, even though he wasn't a starter, he didn't play with Impact at all. It's not all his fault, but at some point, if it's not working, a change is needed. Yeah, or you need someone who can actually figure out how to make them have synergy. Like get both opinions and be like, this is what we're doing, and show them like this is how 369 plays with Kanavi, right? If Blabber wants to beat Kanavi, this is how you two need to play together. This is how they've played together, and like show them a bunch of like different VODs and teach them how to do that. But who's gonna come up to Blabber and say, hey, this is how you need to learn how to play, right? Like it's really difficult to go up to Blabber and say, I'm going to teach you how to play jungle, or to Fudge and say, I'm going to teach you how to play top lane, or I'm going to teach you synergy. It's kind of hard. Um, yeah, so I mean, I think CL creates a good academy system, but they don't want to use them. Just sign the biggest names. Yeah, that's again. You watch my. I don't know if you watch my Why I Hate Team Liquid um, live stream, but that's a great TLDR. They have a great academy system, and then what do? They sign Pioshik. Yeah, and Summit. They accidentally was keeping APA and Yan. Yes, that they didn't even want to keep them. Kind of seems like most of the rookies in general in the league are just the result of the orgs not wanting to spend big now. Yeah, and I think they're seeing, oh wait, if we invest in our rookies, they can become better. So maybe we don't have to take a rookie and expect him to be as good as a world champion. Maybe with a couple of splits, he can be better. Maybe he just needs good infrastructure and environment. Who knows? Was Fudge really that bad in 2023? Spring he played most champions with Sion and Casante? No, I think this was his worst split by far. He wasn't that bad in 2023. I think he was top three the entire time. I think Impact was better than him, for example. In spring for sure. In summer, towards the end, he was better. But I mean, even Fudge said like that he was better. Impact, he would put Impact first. So I don't think he was the worst. I'm talking internationally. Yeah, I mean internationally, he was never able to match up, and he talked about it, and Whippo talked about it too. And he's like, "This is why he plays non-traditional play styles or picks or whatnot is because I'm not as good as Bin. I'm not going to beat Bin in a Jax versus Fiora, so I'm going to play the tank. I'm going to TP bot. I'm going to let him get a lead, but my bot lane's going to get a bigger lead, and we're going to win through that." And I respect it. He was plateauing. Of course, he was still really good. Not really them learning their lesson. Yeah, it's so strange how they didn't improve, even though they kept going international. That's something that always confused me. Like you go to international, that should be the time where you have like a boot camp, you're improving, and you bring back those lessons to North America and you play better. But that just doesn't happen, and it sucks. But maybe they have now learned their lesson. He was really good, but not improving. Yeah, I agree with Nomer. Honestly, taking imports and developing them works to core and impact are examples. I think those are not examples. They were both world champions when they came. What do you mean by develop? But the chum is the biggest problem. I think there's very rare like world champions that you can bring in. They'll be good. They brought in Crown, they brought in Bang, they brought in all these like world champions. We had Looper and Flame. Did Flame win? I don't think he did. But regardless, we had a bunch of world champions that we brought in. We brought in Pioshik. They suck. I think the only two examples of world champions that were good, a lot of fans were also calling out all the tank playing from NA though. Yeah, and Fudge did try to play carry versus carry and got clapped. He was nowhere near as good. And like, what do you do? Piotrek was a world champ too. Yeah, I mean, chumming in the yes, I churning. Oh, not chumming. I can't read. Maybe developing is the wrong word. I think integrating, like long term, like signing a contract and being like you have to stay here for 3 years sucks for you. Like you're not leaving. Um, I think that works. And like if we bench you, we bench. Yeah, probably not a good idea to do that. But I do think that um, players like Castle and Mask are. I want to see more berserkers, more castles, more masks, who have proved nothing. Korean players who have proved nothing, who you can see they have potential, rather than players who have done it all, proved everything, and have nothing to prove in North America. So Prince is a great example. I think even Vikla was a good example. Now you have to provide the environment. That's why I think Team Liquid's imports often work better than you expect. Whether it's even Summit and Pioshik, I mean, at some point they made it to Worlds, even though they finished ninth. So I do think that environment is very important. You have to invest in whoever you bring and create the right environment. Yes, I completely agree, Numer. I should have read what you said instead of saying it myself. Yeah, but you have to get the right imports. Better examples would be probably be Berserker, Noah, Bo. Yes, was kind of mishandled. I agree. Start with high floor and room to develop. Yes, I agree, 100%. Like our volley is a bad investment, and Bwipo could have been a good one. For Team Liquid, yes. I mean, okay, getting players on a 1 year contract that you probably aren't going to be on the team the next year is horrible. If you're going to import for what year was NA at Worlds? Was it 2022? I think it was 2022. Worlds was in NA because I went to a few of the games. That year, I understand doing 1 year contracts and being like spending a lot of money because it's a time where if you do well at Worlds, you could get good sponsors and like you could get a lot more fans and whatnot. But besides that, that specific year, I think yes, you probably want to develop rather than bring in someone for 1 year like an Alfari and then get rid of him the next year, or bring in like a Perks and then get rid of him, and then bring in a Sword Art and just get rid of him. Bring in like a Crown and get rid of him. Like it's not worth it. Or even a Pioshik and then get rid of him the next year. Like it's just not cool. Riot has to Riot has to make what? The league more stable considering income for the teams. That's what they're trying to do with the new payment plans, right? They're trying to make it more stable. So I agree. Thanatos is another example where in theory you can be a really great LCS maintain, so it doesn't fumble him. And I think that's part of the reason they brought in Reapered, right? I don't think Mithy is great coach to have if you're bringing in a Korean rookie top laner. I don't think Mithy is the person you want to coach that team. That doesn't mean Mithy is a bad coach. I think he would do better with a Western rookie like Sniper, for example. I think he would probably be better with a sniper rather than Thanatos. I think if you're bringing in a Korean, you want other Koreans on the team and you want a Korean coaching staff. And support structure, you want a Korean chef who's going to make him Korean food, make him feel like he's at home. You want someone who's been here for a while and understands the culture and can explain it to him. There are so many things that we take for granted. I'll give you an example. I was talking to one of my Korean friends. Actually, no, it was a streamer maybe, and she was I don't know. I don't remember if it was a friend or I don't remember. I think it was a friend. Never mind. I'm confusing two different examples, but I'll give this one. I had like a language exchange partner who was Korean, right? And I would speak in Korean. She was speaking English. We would kind of like learn each other's language because she was here for school as like a study abroad kind of program. And one of the things that I would do is like try to make her feel more comfortable um, by introducing her to other Koreans on campus and like answering any questions. Like sometimes she had logistic questions about like, oh, how do I sign up for this? How to do that? She has someone that she knows she can rely on, or she can find Koreans who might live here and she can rely. Whatever, you get the point. And one thing that she asked was, hey, when you guys brush your teeth, when Americans brush your teeth, do you not use water to rinse your mouth? And I thought it was such a weird question. Like, what do you mean we just brush our teeth and then don't rinse our mouth? She's like, yeah, that's how it is in movies. And I was like, in what do you mean? She's like, look, in movies, you brush your teeth, you spit, you grab a towel, you like wipe your mouth, and you move on with your life. I'm like, oh no, that's just like a cut scene, right? You're kind of just like showing a couple of cuts, but no, we rinse our mouth. We don't just like keep all that yuck goo in our mouth. We rinse our mouth. It's just it's obviously understood that that happens, so they don't need to show that in a movie, especially because like the is not exactly aesthetically pleasing. Let's just say it that way. It looks a lot cooler if you just like spit and wipe and move on with your life. And he's like, oh, a lot of Koreans think that you guys just are nasty because Americans don't rinse their mouth after brushing their teeth. And that's like such a small little thing that you don't realize could be a not a sticking point, but like misunderstanding that could happen. When you take the train to work, do you always if you're in New York, maybe, Robin. Welcome, Robin Banks. Do you have to fight zombies? No, want me to quit asking double lift? Have you ever heard? Question mark. Then takes Google Translate for gunshot. Oh, have you ever heard of gunshot? Stuff in American movies and used versus real life. Yeah, there's so many things like that that you don't realize could be making someone uncomfortable. Like subconsciously. It's not like they're consciously saying, "Oh man, those nasty Americans don't brush their teeth properly." It's not like that. It's just very strange to them. And for example, there's one thing that was strange to me when like I said, I spent a lot of time in Brazil, and one thing I see is people they sneeze, they go "Achoo," and they sneeze in their hands. In America, we sneeze in our elbow, right? Because it's nasty to get goo on your hands. But they're like kind of used to it, and they just wash their hands. And at first, when I saw that, I was just like kind of uncomfortable with the person in front of me. But then I realized that it's just like how they do it in Brazil. And it's just weird, but getting that realization that that's how they do it, it's not just the 2 or 3 people that are next to me, made it so that I'm not uncomfortable because I know that that person, that's just their culture, and it's not just them being unhygienic, for example. I read somewhere that you actually don't wanna rinse so the fluorides or whatever can protect the teeth. I don't know about that. Um, at least my dentist said that the most important thing was actually just the brushing motion and cleaning your teeth so you don't get cavities. But I don't know. Okay, but like I'm a Muslim growing up in America, and I don't know how people live without washing. Yeah, that's why we get bidets, man. For real, toilet paper makes no sense to me on its own. I agree, Numer. I'm the same. That's funny. I don't agree with washing their ass. But there's like these small little culture shocks that you don't realize could be a sticking point for someone and can make someone feel uncomfortable and not at home. But once you understand it and once you're able to break those things down, it actually becomes easier for you to like incorporate things. Because a lot of times, if you don't understand something, it's so hard for you to acknowledge it or to accept it. But when you understand it, it becomes so much easier. And it's the same thing like when I was in Korea, the fact that I knew the culture, knew the language, could speak it, a lot better than I can now, made it so much easier for me to spend time, especially in Brazil. Same thing. The fact that I can speak some Portuguese makes it so much easier for me to live and understand just the environment and the people around me, and makes it easier for me to spend time there and enjoy my time there. I like that Westerners are starting to understand with bidets. Oh, you're not a Westerner, Robert? Okay. Yeah, bidets at home. Yeah, I'm not sure either. Yeah, bidets are the way to go. They're just so nice. Um, oh, I guess like if you're Easterner. Yeah, in Korea, I think, dude, in Japan they have some really cool bidets. That's really cool. Um, and they talk to you and everything. It's like, yeah. I have had my experience of like the heated ones are super cool too. Oh my god, that is insane. Also, Suki, you're an enigma to me. I don't know how you mentioned League Comic Creators 24 randomly. What is your background is and stuff? Okay. I emerged on purpose, kinda. Like I planned this for such a long time. So that's probably why it seems like it was random, but it was very, very planned. It was premeditated immersion. So back in 2020, I got into like the idea of content creation because TikTok, right? I was like, okay, maybe this is a career. Even YouTube kind of exploded as well. And I was like, okay, this is like kind of fun. I enjoy doing this. So let me do this. But I did it for language learning. So I did a bunch of language learning, and I realized it was like a lot more difficult than I expected, and there was a lot more to learn. So I'm a nerd, and I really enjoy learning. So I spent the next 4 years literally just learning marketing. So I learned a lot about more. Um, I'll call it classical marketing, and then I learned more about the modern marketing, which is social media, right, and influencing and stuff like that. And once I felt like I had a very good grasp, I said, okay, well now I need to like actually practice it. And so I started practicing on TikTok in 2022, November of 2022. And I said, I'm going to give myself 1 year and I'm just going to do this and I'm just going to learn what I want to do. And I realized that I didn't want to do language learning because it's something that I enjoy doing, not teaching or not like making content about, but I enjoy making content about League of Legends. So I was like, why don't I just do that? So I started doing that. And gave myself a year of just learning. Like, just do this, just learn, right? And that's what I did. And then at the end of November of 2023, I said, okay, I think I've gotten a good enough grasp. Sort of towards April of 2023, I actually started doing YouTube as well, just like practicing making videos, practicing like speaking to a camera, practicing like asking people to subscribe because that's something I didn't know how to do. If you're not subscribed, you should subscribe, by the way, because I got a lot of cool content coming during MSI and stuff, and even before MSI. But yeah, there's I just wanted to really not just have the knowledge of how to do something, but the actual practicality of how to do it. And so I spent a bunch of time practicing that. And then in November, um, I I decided, okay, like by the end of November, I'm going to like I set a course for like 2024, but I was like, I think I'm ready. And I started putting everything I learned into making really, really good videos. So before I wasn't making very good videos because I didn't know how to make videos. And then I was like, okay, now is the time I know I can make good videos. And I started through interviews because I had questions. And I thought that documenting my journey was with the professional players and coaches was something important because I have these questions and I'd love to get them answered. And I'm not a professional teacher. I used to be a teacher, but like in high school, like part time, for a very long time, for like 15 years of my life, even when I was like younger. And so I knew a little bit about like coaching and teaching. And I'm also a nerd, so I've read a lot about it, and I've read a lot of the research and whatnot. And I used to like teach people how to learn languages, um, and whatnot. So I do have a lot of background in that kind of stuff. So I started talking to coaches, and I messaged like over 100 different people on Twitter, whether they're players, coaches, like managers, whatever it is, to do an interview. And I got Kelsey Moser to agree, and that sort of kicked off my YouTube channel. And then I just kept making videos, and as I kept making videos, I'm not 35, I'm 27, but I started really young. It's very confusing. No, no, I'm 27, but I've been teaching since I don't know, probably around 12, probably younger, but like it wasn't consistent. So, I was relatively academically well inclined, I guess. I was smart, and I used to like tutor people. Sometimes for money, sometimes for community like service hours. Because like we had a thing where, at least in America in high schools, you need to do community service like hours. And for me, it was like a no brainer to just like tutor people. And so I've tutored a bunch of stuff between like languages. A lot of times, even in college, I was tutoring for free. I taught like at part-time schools, or not part-time, like Sunday schools and whatnot. And weekend, yeah, like not like a Kumon, but stuff like that. Um, I tutored personally one-on-one. I've done like joined organizations, that kind of stuff. So I did a lot of teaching, and I found some of my students would see me as like a father figure, and so there was like a little bit of like life coaching in there as well, especially my most recent students. But yeah, I have a lot of different experiences. I played video games my whole life, so I played a bunch of different video games. So I, when I'm thinking of League of Legends, I often think in terms of like Civ 6 or in terms of chess and how you need your pieces in harmony. I played a bunch of games like chess. I'm probably a lot better than I am at um, League of Legends. So you're an intellectual who likes teaching things that interest you. This is some. I don't like teaching. I'm just good at it. That's the thing. A lot of people wonder why I'm not a teacher. Especially I have in my family members teachers, and it's like, oh, when I see you teaching, you're really good. You're really good with kids. You're really, but it's like just because I'm good at it doesn't mean I enjoy it. With an interest in social media and League of Legends, yeah, I have a lot of interests. I like language learning. I like video games. I like reading. I like. I'd love to learn an instrument. I like rock climbing. I love sports. I played sports my whole life basically. These days, I played tennis at some point. I played soccer, football, basketball. I said tennis. Yeah, I'm doing rock climbing now. I used to run. I used to swim. So I have a lot of interests. I'm like a person who just like has so many things that I enjoy doing. Um, and the biggest problem for me personally is finding out how to. At some point in a year, I can only do two or three things, right? And like this year, it's like League of Legends, a little bit of Civ 6, not really doing chess. I'm not learning Portuguese. I kind of dropped Japanese because I can't do Japanese as well. I dropped Slovak because I can't do Slovak as well. I might want to brush up on my Korean, and I rock climb. I don't do any more tennis or swimming or things like that. What's your peak chess elo? Ooh, I used to play as a kid. Recently hit 1,200. Awesome, that's so cool. I think it's like 18 something. I can check. I still play puzzles, but I do puzzles every day or almost every day. How do I see my profile? There we go. My peak chess elo. Right now I'm 1702. My highest was 1714 on chess.com. I thought I hit 1800, but I guess not. My peak puzzles was 2761. That was earlier this year. Right now, I am 2685. Yeah, I had to stop playing Civs outside of breaks because I just spend whole days on. Yeah, yeah, Robin, that's a problem. I stopped playing Civs because it's like 6-hour games, and it just when I was younger, when I was in high school, when I was in college, I had 5 or 6 hours. I could just like play a whole game. Um, I played so much Civ, by the way, last month in March. I wasn't working, right? So I had so much time to play. It was so much fun. But I'd love to play more. Like if I can at some point take another vacation, maybe next year, a part time thing or full time. Um, is YouTube a part time thing or full time? Neither. YouTube is something I enjoy doing. If it becomes a full time thing, like obviously I have the strategy to make it a full time thing, but I'm not gonna push it. Right now, it's a part-time thing, like, I'm not making enough money. I've only been monetized for, like, a month. Well, I guess it's technically March, but I wasn't doing anything in March, so I've only been monetized for, like, while I'm here, less than 30 days, because I got monetized, like, halfway through February. So, I'm still seeing I think eventually, if I keep doing it, I could make it a part-time thing and then a full-time thing, but as of right now, it's not I'm not really worried about. Right now, I wanna be the best YouTuber I can be, and then I'll worry about making it into full-time or part-time. I want to make the best League of Legends related videos that exist by the end of this year. So when I make a video, whether it's like a documentary or a highlight video or some like an interview, I want it to be the best that exists. If I do a podcast, I want my podcast to be the best podcast, better than everyone else, not because I'm gonna do the same thing just better, but because I have different things that are just better. Um, what do I do for work? I'm an engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer, so I work on latches. If you ever make money off of it, you can invest in the channel. I would recommend a thumbnail artist. So I have a friend kinda who offered to do some thumbnails, and that's why you can see some of the thumbnails more recently, like specifically. Let me share my screen if I remember how to do that. Um, where is my video? Your channel. There we go. Videos. Oh, I'm live. Who would have guessed? Share screen. Is it this one? Yeah. See, like the last 4 videos, actually the last 6 were made by said thumbnail artist. And they're so much better than like these guys, right? So I do agree. Like I said, I know that how important thumbnails are, and I know how important titles are. And like I've studied this, right? I've like learned it, not studied, but during like my 4 years of like learning how to be a YouTuber, um, I've learned about it and I've learned the importance, but that doesn't mean I'm good at it. It just means I know about it and I have to actually practically get good. So even if you look before, like this thumbnail is so bad. Like these, you don't even know who's the player that's on here. This one, so like at some point, I went from making these type of thumbnails. Actually, no. At some point, it went from like these thumbnails to a little bit more creative like thumbnails, different fonts, like me trying to figure out what's happening. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna start doing these like more. I don't know why this one isn't. Yeah, but just simpler ones that are I didn't realize, but yeah, the recent ones are better. My head was ingrained in random fonts and colors. I don't blame you. I mean, I really don't blame you. But yeah, I started getting a little bit better. I'm still experimenting with like fonts and colors. You can see because I don't necessarily think they're good. Um, I know that they can be much better, and I just don't know how to make them better. So I'm trying to learn. Like not a single one of these red colors is the same red shade of red. I was like really experimenting with red, and I still don't know any of them are great. Haha, make Elsie great again. That's funny. And then yeah, thumbnail artist started like this is such a nice red compared to all these. Like I don't have a single red that's the same red as this. Um, but yeah, I do plan on like reinvesting all the money that I make um, into like thumbnail artists or people who can actually edit. The Raz one's probably the best. Yeah, I agree. Like my thumbnail artist, sometimes I'll tell him like the idea that I have, and then he will make it look so clean. I'll be like, dude, it didn't even cross my mind that you could do that. That is so cool. Um, but yeah, so I do think I have a long way to improve in YouTube before. So I know by the end of the year is a very optimistic um, goal, but I do plan on yeah having the. But actually, let me share my screen again just to show you some of the, like the when I first learning some of the older thumbnails. I think it's maybe using slightly too saturated red. Maybe this is just my opinion. I like the palish and also the ugly contrast between yellow and red. Yeah, I'm not very good with that stuff. I like yellow and black to be honest. I don't know why I started using yellow and red. I think I saw someone using it and I was like, "Oh, they get a lot of views. Must be great." But yeah, maybe you're right. But yeah, I mean, look at these thumbnails. I mean, this one's actually fine. This one, I don't even know what's going on. There's way too much. This one's horrible. This one's like okay-ish. This one's my eyes. Complementary colors. uh, blue and gold. Oh, I see. I don't even know complement. I'm like half colorblind too, so that doesn't help. Um, but yeah, these ones were like not great. I don't even know how this one has that many views. Probably just because I had a good title. Like the it's I really need to remake this one at some point. Um, but yeah, like this one I was pretty happy about. This one was actually nice. This one's so bad. I had a friend make this one, but still, these like these where is it? These two are so bad. I thought this one was really good. What's your peak league rank? I'd never go above plat. It's not worth it. I prefer playing ARAMs. Um, so yeah, plat. I have no idea actually. Plat what? I don't know. I don't just in general, colors, I should stay away from super bright true colors, if that makes sense. Less of a ooh, okay. All right. I am copying and saving this. Yeah, another thing that I did, which really helped me, is I reached out to so many different people and talked to them. Even if it's like not collaborating with them, it's just talking with them about what what they do, what works for them, what works for me, what I think they could do better. I've given a lot of people like advice, whether it's like solicited or not, just like things that I see that they could have done better. Um, just because I think it's very important. Like I talked about the whole collab in my collaboration video. I think it's important to collaborate with your peers and with people who are outside of your field to like get more viewership and whatnot, to get to a different audience. But I do think that the fact that I've been so open and then talking to people has really helped. I mean, just look at this thumbnail versus this thumbnail. I mean, come on, they're like night and day. The person already helped. Yeah, it was. Yes, Robin. It's such a small world. I can't. Yeah, I messaged him. I was like, because I had messaged a bunch of people to like figure out how they get interviews, and no one responded. And then the 2 that responded were Ruddy and Shibby. And Ruddy was, like, telling me that you needed some sort of pass, a media pass, and I was like, "Okay." And so I looked online, couldn't find anything, and so I started asking around for North American media passes, and Shibby was the one who was like, "This is what I did to get my pass." And then I went and I submitted it, and I even talked to, David about it, and he was like, "Yeah, that's how I did it." I feel like Lee can be elitist, and many listen to people who think they know the game best. Yes, I guess Travis is a counterexample. For years, he had Mark as a partner. I remember seeing that on Twitter and found your channel earlier that week, and I thought it might be you. Yeah. How do you plan to mitigate the analysis gap problem? I'm not an analyst. I'm just not going to analyze, right? I don't I'm gonna say my opinion as a fan, and I'm gonna make it very clear that I don't play League of Legends professionally or never have. And even then, I don't play when I play League, I play ARAMs. I don't play Summoner's Rift. I understand the game at a different level because I see the game through lenses of different games like Civ 6 and chess, which are probably the 2 games that I play the most. Um, and so like I can have a different perspective. Doesn't mean it's right. And then I will just have analysts do their thing. Whether it's like I'm bringing people like in the video. Oh, I already stopped sharing, but bringing in like Loyoda, who's an LCS analyst, and he has a good mind for the game, or talking to people who have a good mind in the game. Sort of what Travis did with Mark, but rather than having someone who's like always with me, I like listening to what people have to say. So you'll see like in the video that I said that B-Boy was um might be nepotism. I brought in a bunch of people. Like Kelsey Moser said, he's not good. I Will Dominate said, I've watched him play. He's not good. Who else did I think those are the only 2 examples, but there are other people that I've seen um, that I respect that their opinion that clearly know about the game, and I put that into the video, sort of justifying why I'm bringing this up. So I don't plan on doing analysis content. I think just the environment shit in detail that we were discussing today was real insightful. I think outside the game people would be interested in. Yeah, I don't think that's. I think you can have different specialties, right? I think I'm a very good people person. I'm not an extrovert, but I'm not an introvert. I prefer. I'm like somewhere in between, I guess. And I've also had a lot of environment like professional experience, right? I have a full time job as an engineer, which is very different of an experience than everyone else. I've played sports, not professionally, but I've had coaches. I've coached, sort of taught people. I've mentored people. I guess is the better example. Like people keep saying Mithy is shit, fudge is shit, but people don't ask why. Yes, exactly. That's one thing that I've tried to bring up multiple times in like my earlier interviews with coaches of worked with players. Like I want to understand why they're not playing well. And if you look at Sharks, I talked to him about tactical, and I said, hey, when I look at tactical, I think that he was on a very serious environment on Team Liquid, and I don't think that was conducive to him improving. Do you agree? And he basically said like I've talked to him about it, so I can't really like it was sort of a personal conversation, so I can't say much. But I will say this is like before I even talked to him about it, I asked him why what happened on Team Liquid. But before that, I remember seeing uh the player cams and like Team Liquid had won a fight and like everyone was like talking like, "Oh, we should do this, we should do that." Meanwhile, tactical was like, "Sheesh." And he was like, "Oh, tactical is not lasting on that team. That team is way too serious." Seem like people ignore nuance, which is kind of an internet problem. Yes, I think people ignore nuance. I love what you said, Robin. People ignore nuance, not just in their lives, not just in League of Legends, but in their lives. If you look at any take on Twitter, you're either 100% right or 100% wrong. You're either with me or against me. It's so much of like Gary Vee said this best. We're so red or blue, but there's purple in a lot of things. And even if it's red, there's a hint of purple. There's a hint of blue. There's stuff that you need to talk about. There's like even when we are talking about the Saudi thing, like there's background information. There's context to a lot of things. Taking things out of context is never conducive. And when you're worried about being right or wrong rather than understanding, you do not see this. And I think that's why I like to bring these things up because I want to understand. And like I was saying earlier, when you understand something, it's so much easier for you to accept it versus when you don't understand something. Not only are you living in like this weird tainted reality where things aren't exactly what you think that they are, it's also just like to me it makes no sense. I've always been a very curious person. Like I said, even when I was younger, I was smart not because I'm like this gifted, talented kid. It's because I just want to understand, right? And I want to learn. And to me, when I got my new math book for that year, I got excited. I'm like, oh my God, I can learn so much math. I can understand stuff. And so even when I'm learning new concept, I try to understand how they apply to the world that I live in because I try to understand the world, and I find it very fascinating. That's why I studied physics and engineering is because I wanted to understand how the world works and I wanted to apply that as well. And I think one thing that our education system here in the U.S. does not do a good job is teach us ethics, teach us how to think philosophy. Sorry, not ethics, but like the philosophy of engineering is not a course I had to take. It's a course that I would have loved to take, but understanding how my engineering skills, the things that I'm learning, affect the world around me, whether it's right or wrong, regardless of that, just understanding that thought process is something that I wish I would have learned. Um, so you have two strategic coaches that, oh, wait, 2021, Mithy was a strategic coach. Rainover was head coach, but neither were good for head coach. Rainover broke down, so Mithy took on the head coach. Now, two strategic coach, the head coach that didn't work out. Yeah, then he became a head coach, even though he was a better strategic coach, and that's someone stuck budgets, I guess. I'm sure there's a reason. Like, I would love to talk to Jack and be like, "Hey, talk to me about that offseason. Talk to me about, you know, going in. What things did you see, or whoever did the hiring? Maybe Jack wasn't the one that did it, but I'm assuming he was involved. Like, whoever did the hiring of the coaching staff, clearly there had to be something involved, right? There was thought process. I always try to say that people think about what they're doing, especially at like companies. There's some sort of thought process. The process can be bad, but there is some process, right? And so I'd love to be able to talk like to team owners or general managers and understand what happened and what was the thought process behind it. And then we can sort of analyze and understand, okay, this was the thought process. I can maybe they didn't identify that this was wrong, but from my personal experience, having lived in the corporate world or this or that, I can say this is like certain issues that I could have identified. Maybe I couldn't have identified it before it happened, but after it happened, I can identify it. Things like that. Um, are the secret YouTuber tools I don't know people use to find clips they need? Because I'm looking for a clip of Azale saying movement speed is the most important stat. No, it's just having a good memory. I think it was in the semifinals between Team Liquid and Cloud9, if I'm not mistaken. But I wish there was a tool. Literally, when I make a video, the most amount of time I do is spend looking for clips because I remember he said something kind of like what you did, and then I just have to go back through every single Azale video and find it. It sucks. It's a lot of time that you don't see us working on that kind of stuff, but yeah, it exists. Then you look at Team Liquid, they had better. Yes, these allocations matter. I agree, Numair. Your assessment, I very much vibe with what you said. Like, it's proven that it hasn't worked with you with Rainover, and then you tried it again with Mithy. There must have been some logic thinking that Mithy is different than Rainover, and so like he might have an extra advantage, or it was a budget issue, or something. There was something that had to happen. I refuse to admit that it was just like a negligence um, until it's proven to be negligence. I always try to give them benefit of the doubt. Part of it's probably just underestimating the importance of people skill and head coaching. Maybe it is. I consider that negligence. I hope it's not that because you've been running this org for how many years since you got into the league at 2013, man? Come on. It's been 11 years, like 12 years at this point. You can't come on. I like Blabber, Jojo, Berserker, so I want C9 to succeed. Also, Thanatos signing is hype. I agree. I'm actually more hyped for the combination of Berserker, Thanatos, and Reapered rather than any one individual because I think it might help Berserker be Berserker again. I think it's underestimated the number of times you have a single Korean player on a team do well is literally once. That's the only time it's ever happened, and it's in 2022 summer, where there were no Korean players, and it was Berserker by himself, and that is like prodigy basically of like League of Legends. Rarely do we ever have Koreans do well on their own. Even when we brought in Crown, even when like regardless of who you bring in, environment is like crucial. And that's I think like Mithy did not have a great environment to develop as a head coach. Do I think he can be a good head coach? Absolutely. Do I think he was put in an environment where he could be a good head coach? I don't think so. Especially since he got kicked after one split. I don't think that's or it wasn't one split, but with this roster. Um, I remember hearing it and I need it for my APA racing edit. Oh, yeah, I think it's in the semifinals, like at loser bracket finals. Um, I think that's when he said it. Maybe it's just Jack listening to players all saying Mithy is the best. Like, yes, he can do the best, but it doesn't mean he can't be better with better coach allocations. Yeah, I think a big part of Jack's job, sort of like Steve, is finding a good general manager. Like when you have Papa Smithy or Andrew Barton right now as a general manager, you bring in people you trust, have enough understanding of the ecosystem, have proven track records, and can understand sometimes what players say isn't exactly the best, or maybe players don't realize they need something else, or whatever it is, right? Like Cloud9, like Berserker didn't realize he wanted to do like every day do their workouts, but after a while he said, "Oh, it's actually beneficial to me. I enjoy it now." So things like that. There's this transcript thing in YouTube videos. Maybe they can help you find something specific. I have never been able to find make it useful, but maybe don't. Not necessarily total negligence because you look at the split, they spent big on JoJo, and apparently they came to the strategic conclusion that JoJo was worth having got to. Yeah, maybe that is what happened. Um, 1 second, didn't work out, but that seems like the bet they took. Yeah, GMs have no idea and hire staff with no plans to hire a player. That's why you need good GMs, right? Like I said, we've gotten rid of a lot of the bad coaches and we put in better coaches. Now we need better GMs. So Andrew Barton is someone who's has a proven track record. I think Papa Smithy was relatively a good general manager. And I don't know who the GMs for the other teams are, to be honest. Which probably says some. I think the GM is like David. What is his name? David, the Cloud9 one. 1 second. Oh wow. Dodo Jonathan. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dodo for Team Liquid. Jonathan. No, it's David. Yeah, it is David. Jonathan is the ex GM of NRG. Oh, the staff exclusively. Yeah. How often do coaches have majority say in roster or staff moves? Because in traditional sports, the coaches often pushing specific coaching or coaching staff. Not as much as it should be in like Sharks, for example, is someone who had full say. Obviously, he had a budget, right? But Sharks is an example of someone who had. Why is my camera blurry? 3070 numeric. I mean, those are made up numbers. I agree with them. Yeah, 3070. Very rarely. A lot of times you bring in a coach in the middle of a split. I think this specific split, you had Sharks, I know, because he told me. You had Revan, because I think he said it. And if not, it's kind of like an open secret. You no, he told me. Yeah. I think Spawn, I don't know how much of it was was him. I don't know. Mithy, probably not very much. Um, who else? Maybe Dignitas Co. I really don't know. I don't know. Seems like in a league, it's usually our players and analysts figure out the best way. Yeah, it seems like a lot of times the coaches are given something to deal with, and then they have to deal with it. And a lot of times, maybe a player will say, "Hey, I'm not going to play with that player," and it's happened on EG, for example, with Peter Dunn, and it's caused problems. Dick Fisher in the past did. He brought in Rich. Yeah, but what about the rest of the players? I don't know. And the past Dick coach, Blue. Yeah, that's true, Numer. Um, I don't know how often they get to pick the whole roster, but at least bring in specific players. Yeah, I think for the lesser teams, teams that don't really make it far, like Dignitas Immortals, a lot of times the coaches are given a lot of freedom, but the coaches don't have that much freedom because players don't want to play there to begin with. But on higher teams, it seems like there's a lot more pressure. Like I know on TSM, Bjergsen always had a say, whether he was coach or not, right? Even on T1, like if Faker doesn't approve it, it's not happening. Rosters and coaching positions are too volatile to really have coach-driven multiple-year projects. Yeah, which is a problem. That's why I think 2 years is a perfect balance, right? It's not like 1 year because you really can't. Very rarely do you have something happen in 1 year, and NRG sort of proved the 2-year model where it can work. EG proved a 2-year model where it worked. Since Peter Dunn came 2 years later, it worked. So I do think 2 years is a good compromise. Everyone wanted Cena and JoJo. That's true. Well, to be fair, top team players you want obvious whoever want. Yeah, because most of the other top teams collapse or weren't reaching peaks level like past. I mean, do you think if C9, if JoJo went to FlyQuest, FlyQuest wouldn't win? I think so. I think they would win. I think FlyQuest would look so much better. Not to say Jensen's played poorly, but I think JoJo having Inspired on his team, having Whipple on his team is probably so much better than JoJo having like Fudge, who doesn't talk nearly as much, Blabber, who took a back seat to where I don't think Inspired would. So I do think that, and they've already played together, obviously. Um, the flat TL peaked in 2019. TSM is gone. 100 reorg. C9 was the main remaining. Yeah, Fly wasn't established, so people weren't pushing Fly. Jojo. I Yeah, that's true. With the pressure to form with a split or a season, I think total band-aid changes and fixes, and that leads to piecemeal teams without much thought put to the roster. That's very true, Robin. A lot of what we don't see is like putting out fires or band-aids, and you can almost never like truly show what the product you wanted to come out. Like for example, Shopify. We didn't have Bvoy. We never scrimmed with Bvoy. Like most people had at least a month and a half extra practice with the team compared to Shopify. It sucks, but problems like these happen all the time. Um, aw, 1 second. But yeah, I think that I'm a Double Lift fan. I'm sad he has too much ego to play with APA, and Dodo had too much ego to let him back in. Um, I don't know. Do I think Double F was a better player last split? Yeah, I think so. I think he was better back in 2023. He was better than Jan. Do I think it was a bad move not to bring up? Like, if I was Dodo, would I have chosen Double Lift over Jan? No. I would much rather develop, especially because I brought in Spawn. Right? If I don't have Spawn, maybe I send Jan somewhere else where you can actually develop. But the fact that you brought in Spawn, I think you want to keep Jan. Now, they wanted Berserker to begin with, so I'm not going to give TL too much credit there. I'm not going to give Dodo that much credit, considering what they wanted. But I do see where you're coming from, Numer, that if you're a Double Lift fan, it kind of makes sense. Like Double Lift, you don't have the best rosters. You're not Berserker. You don't get the say of where you want to go. So maybe if you had a little bit more humility and say, I'll play with APA and I'll just hard carry, maybe it works. Maybe you say, hey, maybe the first split we have APA, and then maybe after a year we get a better mid laner because we have a better team. Um, but yeah, with the salaries going down and just not having that humility is kind of hard. That's why it extra sucks when the bigger moves, when the bigger, more spendy orgs like TL don't seem to have a good track record for smart roster building because they kind of org with the resources. Yeah, it's very frustrating because they try to build something every year instead of going the like shorter route because they've made a brand of winning. Like Steve is delusional when he said the comments that he said back in August when he was like, "Oh yeah, the like content creation is just like this little fad, like almost as if it's like this pyramid scheme that's not really important, and we're gonna make a culture." It's like, man, he's speaking as if he's 2000 America, like 2000s corporate America. The world lives on social media. You would much rather have a team that's forever fourth and a million YouTube subscribers than the other way around, than a team that wins once every 5 years or won five out of, how many splits were they in? Like they were 2015 is when they became Team Liquid. So 19, wait, no, nine split? 19 splits. Yeah. You win like five out of 19 splits you would and like no no fan base or like a much smaller like a tenth of his fan base, you make so much more money as a business, and then you're able to reinvest that money to get better players, which will give you better like results and more fans and whatnot. um it's very frustrating, Robin. I completely agree. To get a good head coach, um, and let them pick out the roster from scratch. That's very rarely going to happen. Um, EG is one that tried to do that. They brought in Peter Dunn. They gave him control, and he wasn't able to get all the players he wanted. There was a player that he was supposed to get, but Team TSM kind of like lied and said that they were going to give him, and then never gave him, and they were stuck with Deathly, and then they brought in Danny and whatnot. So, and I think he had to fight. He had to fight for Danny and JoJo instead of Jensen and Doublelift. Um, but eventually he was able to get his way. But there's a world where they kind of override what Peter Dunn wanted, and you end up with a team that no Danny. Um, and then you run with it for a few years. I think maybe Numer was the one that said it, or maybe you said it, Robbins. But it's just like it's too quick and too fast moving for you to be able to have the same roster multiple years. It's just like it rarely ever happens. T1 is a unique example. TSM that 2016, 2017, even then they had like roster changes every other split. Um, Obviously, the Gen G roster or at Samsung Galaxy with Core JJ, very few rosters are able to do that just because of the. I don't know. I don't know. It sucks. I think they finally picked Dion. I just want to see Doublelift still play and succeed. Same. I would love to see Doublelift improve and like prove himself. I want to see Doublelift become the best again because I think it's very healthy when you have a player like that who was the best, like one of the top three back in like season one, season two, was the best in the West for a very long time, and then could take a break, not be the best, be like fourth or fifth best, and then still make his way back up to first. Just from a narrative standpoint, that is so cool. And it's like my own personal little um, for my own satisfaction. I think if not saying it was objectively wrong. Yeah, I don't know if Doublelift showed enough to displace many current LCS AD carries during his 100T tenure. I mean, okay, he doesn't displace Berserker, he doesn't displace FBI, and he doesn't displace. Um, yeah, that's. I mean, he was better than Tobo. He's better than Tactical. He was better than Yon. Bvoy wasn't even in the league. Is that everyone? I got Dignitas, Immortals, Energy. Oh, he wasn't better than FBI. Did I mention him? I don't know. Um, but I thought he was top three, in my personal opinion. Oh, Stixay. I guess Stixay he wasn't better than Stixay, and then EG had Unforgiven. I think he was better than Unforgiven, in my opinion. I don't know if Joe's the wrong way when he says I'll only play if JoJo plays, so it doesn't help his case. I agree, Numer. It's like a bit of a elitist mentality. It's like I'll only play with the best because I'm the best, kind of thing. Um, I like his play and part of his personality, but not the narrow tunnel vision. Yeah, have to remember that he comes with a lot of strings given his influence, higher salary, more demands about roster, play more friction with coaches. That's true. Like Giannis probably listens a lot more to Spawn than, for example, Double Lift might, because Double Lift probably has an ego, which can be a good or bad thing depending on what you're trying to build, right? Get Sitki as TL content creator manager, get him to quit his Meki job. Oh, that's funny. Thank you, Noir. Um, oh snap! I just figured out how to do a poll. I accidentally clicked on a button and it showed me a poll. I don't have a poll to ask, but I just learned. C9 almost did that with LS. Then what happened, and you end up with a weird roster of the person who put it together. Yeah, that LS roster was the saddest thing ever because you could have seen so creative. Part of the reason I like Shopify is that you never know what they're going to draft. They draft all these really cool compositions. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but they do it. And LS had Soraka mid, and he was winning with it. Like he had these comps that might not have been completely his. Like there are times where he wanted a champion and the player didn't, and so he went with what the player did. But I thought it was a really cool experiment. I wish we had more of that. Um, Especially because, like, for teams like Shopify, for teams like Dignitas, Immortals, your goal is not to win. I'm sorry, but your goal is not to win LCS. Your goal is to make maybe make it to an international event, Worlds. Like, if you can finish third, that would be amazing. But first and foremost, is to make fans. And fans like it when you win, but they also like content creators and they like super cool weird drafts. People are gonna watch Shopify play if because they don't know like, oh, are we going to see a Zach mid? Are we going to see a Sion mid? Are we going to see a Garen mid? They're going to watch that. They might even watch the highlights only because they don't watch like LCS as much because not as many people watch LCS, but they're still going to be engaged. They're going to know the name Shopify, and that's what you want. Because meta changes, yeah, that's another thing. Is that meta changes, so it's really hard to stay with the same core, like what G2 tried to do with the same like players. At some point, like the meta changes, and you're just not as good on that meta. Not everyone is good in every meta. Ironically, closer sucked last year, but probably be really good this year. Yeah, um, probably doesn't displace B-Boy. I I agree, Robbins. I think B-Boy is pretty good. He's proved himself. I can't displace 6A though. Let's be real. Historically, yes. Last split, 2023 summer. I don't think so. I don't think so, low. Haha, Robbins. It's funny. This is like the fourth time where you say something, I say something, and then I look at the comment and you said it like 2 minutes ago, but I'm still catching up with the comments. Sven talked about the roster making no sense, even with the less, because Korean league players are kind of stubborn and what they're. Yeah, he also talked about Berserker just like refusing to play a lot of the stuff that um LS was saying. Like he refused to play Cho'Gath until Guma, like a year later, played Cho'Gath because he was like, oh, a pro player is never going to get hit by Cho'Gath Q in a professional game. And like Guma played Cho'Gath Senna and hit every Q because people aren't used to playing him competitive. But I think LS had mentioned that he knew that Koreans are stubborn, but he had faith that he could mold them, that over time he would be able to convince them through showing them, demonstrating to them that his idea works. And he didn't realize that it doesn't matter if you demonstrate it, because sometimes people are just way too stubborn. Double with environment only worse. Double with environment only is worse than Berserker and FBI depending on meta. Yes, the FBI has had his up and downs, so I can agree with that. 6A had one play with Zeri to get Bjergsen to retire. Man, come on, that hurts. I'm a Bjergsen fan. It's true, Numer, but that hurts. Maybe Sven if he returns AD carry. I'd love to see Sven on a team. Like the problem is I kind of like all the AD carries that are playing right now. I like Tomo. I like Tactical. I like Jan. I like Berserker. I like Bvoy, and I can't remember the last one, so maybe I don't like him that much. Oh, FBI. Yeah. Ooh, dude, Sven for FBI or would be really hype. That would be really cool. Double is not even the type of veteran that offers much in the way of shot calling or stability. Historically, he was. So in 2015, up until 2016, he wasn't, but eventually he realized he needed to become a shot caller. um, much in the way it kinda just forces specific shitty play style that'll get you to playoffs. That's also true, Robbins. I said closer would be good this year because Lee Sin Viego. I agree. I think his Viego was, like, absolutely insane, and Lee Sin as well, much better than, like, Maokai and Sejuani. At Dome, I agree, but with one coach calling the shots, especially the one who handpicked the players' problems, I think there's a higher chance of success. Plus, same coach can. Yes, I agree. I think keeping the same coach is probably more important. Um, the 100T roster made no sense. They try to keep string, copy EG, but there's no sense. Yeah, I don't think they had the structure behind it, right? Like if you're gonna do that, you need proper structure. That's what EG did, and they just try to crap baskets. They try to copy it without actually like doing their due diligence. I meant more like good shot calling. Yeah, I agree. They didn't. Oh, dude, again, Numer. The 100T made no sense. They just tried to copy. They didn't replicate the previous roster success. Yeah. Like playstyle wise, yeah, it's true. There were some other problems behind the scenes with it though. But if it wasn't case swapping Fudge back top and getting a mid that subscribed to LS would have been the best move. I agree. I would have loved that. That would have been cool. I like Tomo because I don't know if there are any other New York reps in the league. He's from New York. Oh my god, why is David not all over that? I think Busier or Tenacity bringing up is fine, not both, because then you have two rookie-ish lanes. Gotta go though. Great stream. All right, Dome. Thanks for hanging out. Closer didn't have previous experience with the other two veterans. Yeah, I think the problem with that team is that you remove Huhi, who's a big voice, and then you brought in Doublelift, who's a very different type of voice, and you had two rookies who had no voices, and it seemed like their playstyle was not what Closer was good at playing. And I think if you were to keep Huhi, I think Busio is amazing. I think he will eventually be better than Huhi, but um, I think you really needed Huhi on that team. Like if you have a three core with two rookies is fine. Yeah, I agree. I mean, even the EG one, it's not like Vulcan, Impact, and Inspired had experience playing together. Um, but I think the type of people that you brought in a natural leader in Inspired. You brought in a rock, a very solid player in Impact who can bring stability to that team regardless of what's happening, what the meta is. And then you brought in someone who can hold Danny's hand in Vulcan. They worked by luck and the fact that Jojo was really good and inspired. I don't think it was luck. It was very, very specifically handpicked. Like there was a lot of thinking about it. Like they scouted Danny, they scouted Jojo. They knew they wanted those two players. Like if Tenacity was as good as Jojo, then 100T can work. That's a. I don't think it's luck that Jojo and Danny played much better. It's because they were provided with the structure for them to succeed. I think. I mean, everyone knew Jojo was going to be amazing, but they let them make mistakes. That's the thing that I don't think happened on 100 Thieves. And that's something that Peter Dunn and what's Nasa's name? Empire talked a lot about is that we let our rookies make mistakes. And that's something that they need that environment where they can make mistakes or else they're never going to improve. And it felt like Tenacity and Busio weren't allowed to like mess up. And every time they messed up, it was like even though the game had other things about it, they don't focus on those. I'm guessing here, but allowing your rookies to mess up is very important. Even Impact talk about this split. He's like, sometimes, man, my teammates, my APA and Jan make these mistakes, and I'm just like so frustrated. And I'm like, man, calm down. They're rookies. It's their job to make mistakes. That's how they learn. So I think that was environment, like you were talking about, Robin, is pretty important. Jojo wasn't even especially good his rookie season, though. I mean, he was good, but he had rookie mistakes, and he specifically played around that. Yes, and they played around the fact that Danny was bad in lane, and it was an amazing team fighter. Like that. That's what ran the team. Like Jojo wasn't 2023 summer Jojo, right? Where like his laning straight up won them games. He was good at laning. He was great, but Danny was what won them games. They all played for Danny, and because they knew Danny would carry them, he did. Peter Dunn also has a great track record developing rosters too. Yeah. Oh, it's sad that they spoiler alert. It's sad that they lost today. I thought that after game 1 and game 2, I felt like they threw game 2, like they totally could have won, and then game 3 was just sad to watch. I mean, you can compare it to this 100D, let the sniper make mistakes, but still don't win a championship. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the only difference is that 100 this 100 Thieves does not have championship aspirations. It has development aspirations, and they overperformed quite greatly, and I don't think they'll do as well next split. Um, but I think that the previous EG had winning aspirations, which is a little bit different. Being the architect of the eventual Mad 2020 success. Yeah, he brought in Mac. He trained Mac. He brought in that whole roster. I mean, not the whole roster, but he like set the structures for that team, and he definitely deserved some success. And guess what? When they played against Mad in 2022, they crushed them. And it was very nice to see as a NA fan. Bjergsen and double lift, that's the only standard that's acceptable? Yeah. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying, Numer. When you compare the 100, this 100 Thieves, let sniper make mistakes with the Bjergsen double lift. It's very clear that the player on roster was made in a way that intentionally bolstered the rookie's weaknesses and played and let them develop. Yeah. It's like, I mean, you play Civ 6, but it's like finding your timings, right? There are a lot of times where you can't, like, you're not a very good culture Civ, but you can find different ways of getting culture and you still get your science victory, but you know you need that resource of culture in order to like win the game, right? So it's just finding ways of like the weakness of your Civ, covering and shoring up those weaknesses at the same time utilizing your strengths. And I think that's what they did very well. They were able to cover the weaknesses and utilize the strengths. RNT the split make more sense when you realize that they knew they were frauds like everyone else. They were apparently not good in scrims. Yeah, majority of sample size. Didn't they go on like a 20 game losing streak or something crazy like that? I wish we felt more support to bring himself back to past glory. Kind of, yeah. Um, I wish Bjergsen didn't retire. He's my favorite player, but I I wish he was on a team where he could, like a Peter Dunn run team or a Grabs run team, something where like he just has to play. He doesn't have to be a leader because I think that burnt him. He tried so much to become a leader, and he became a leader at some point. But I think like in 2019, he was a carry, and that's what got them the finals. He was like, "Screw everyone else. I'm going to play my game, and I'm going to play it well." And when he focused on being a leader and playing the zillion and just like shot calling for the team, he wasn't as good. And I wish that he would have had someone like a Huhi, someone like a Peter Dunn on the team, someone like an expired. I also think he picked to play with really bad players, or like not matching players for his what he wants. So I doubt they actually thought they'd come close to winning even after regular season. Yeah, I don't think they did. I don't think they did, Robin. It's sad, but it's true. All right, I think I covered enough of this topic. The Mithy topic was like an hour, and then there's like another 2 hours of talking about a bunch of stuff. I really enjoyed hanging out with you guys, Numer, Dome, Robin. Um, I think Dome already left, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out and engaging and whatnot. And I will see you guys next time. Copy pasta as well if you're still there. I will figure out if I want to flame all the other teams or what I'm going to say about the other teams, but I would like to talk about them as well, at least the ones that I care about. Based on Beer's loyalty to certain org, it's clear he didn't pick the best people. Yeah, I wish he would have left TSM earlier, but it is what it is. All right, take care, guys. Bye.